Ready to go? I'm usually have the music intro. I had my daughter was in an orchestra, and it's funny. Pete Petrillo, he's I guess he works with the podcast stuff, and he thought it was what's he call it, a juxtaposition. I have this like kind of orchestra music, and it's like you think you're coming into Masterpiece Theater, and it's like no, it's hard hitting fire show anyway. So anyway, I'm Danny Sheridan. I'm a battalion chief with the New York City Fire Department, and this is first new battalion chief, and I'm really honored as always to be here in FDIC. This is I don't know how many 15th year I'm here, and I'm always amazed that I come back. But it's been a great show, and I put a little something up this morning. And one of the things I like about FDIC is that we have this ability to share knowledge. I remember when I was a young guy, my lieutenant, I thought all these guys walked on water, and he said that he's always learning. I was like, how can that be? I mean, you know everything. So, if you think you know everything, maybe you should find another line of work. I just wanted to make a little comment about the posts I put up on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I don't know if any of you guys ever see any of them, but what I like about them, I use these pictures from the let's say the 80s, like the mid 80s, latest. And I got on the job in 86. I want to make that clear. I didn't get on the job in the 70s. I got on in the 80s.
You are old.
Well, relative. And I worked with a lot of guys in 17 truck that had been through the war years. And, I went to the squad, and we made our own way. But I just, you always want to learn, and I'm going to get to why you're here. So in a minute, you're going to introduce yourself, but I'll just bring everyone up to speed. I was given my class, and the class this year was called Getting Ahead of Top Floor Fires. We've noticed probably in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a big increase in top floor fires, and they're always of a big concern, right? Because once they get up into the cock loft, they go unchecked could be for hours, because they start out small and they just go unchecked. So anyway, I made it pretty clear in the beginning of the presentation that I was going to discuss 4 roofs, but we're only going to concentrate on 2 roofs. But I did mention lightweight truss. Okay. So I put up a slide that said, in the FDNY, we do not cut lightweight truss, and I heard there was like the air came out of the room. So that's I'm going to get to in a second why you're here. So after class, a good friend of mine, he gave me a good solid critique, and he said, Dan, when you said that about the roofs, there was a pause. And you have to forgive me. It's not that I'm trying to be arrogant, because we're from New York, but we have a lot of old buildings. It's an old city. I mean, I worked in the South Bronx. We had no lightweight. I just started seeing the lightweight construction in the last 10 or 15 years or so. And now what's happening in the Bronx, right? We had the war years. We all know about the war years, the vacant buildings. Those that survived, we rehabbed. And there's some lightweight stuff going on there. And those that didn't were knocked down, and now they've been replaced with either, if it's a multiple dwelling, it's going to be fireproof. It's going to be type 1, concrete. Or if it's going to be like kind of a duplex type, 2-family, it's going to be lightweight. And I have a whole slew of them now. And I've only had a few fires in them. I did have a top floor fire, which we're going to talk about. And so anyway, the FDNY, we've come up with a policy, and I just take it at face value that we don't cut truss roofs, lightweight truss. And I read done, and I don't have any experience with this stuff. So if they say not to do it, I tell my guys not to do it. So that brings me to yesterday when I made that comment, and I have to tell you, I was really taken aback that people that really cut these things, because I'm telling my guys not to cut these things. So what I'd like to do, let's start off with introducing ourselves, and then we're going to get into, you're going to teach me, because I'm here to teach. I'm actually here to learn right now. I want to learn because I want to bring this back to my battalion, and I want to hear some arguments for, so I could go back to my guys, and I'll tell you why in a second. So Ron, we'll start with you.
Okay, Ron Cabrera, retired battalion chief from LA County Fire Department, and just happy to be here.
Thanks, Ron.
I'm Jace Johnson. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. I'm here The reason why I'm part of this, we're not like a big vertical vent department, our area. So we're not cutting a ton of the roofs, but my background's building construction. And I did a class yesterday called Facts Not Fear, which was kind of debunking a lot of the things that people say about lightweight construction and trusses, things like that.
Very cool.
William Knight, I work for DeKalb County, Georgia. It's right up against City of Atlanta, and we have a huge mixture of West Coast and East Coast in the Southeast. So we get the heavy construction, the commercial style stuff that the Northeast has, and a lot of the lighter weight residential stuff that they have out West. So our operations tend to be a mixture of both.
Great. And so you work with my good friend Sean Gray.
Sean's at Cobb County. He's in the same area though.
Okay.
My name's Rob Fisher. I'm a battalion chief with Department 25 miles north of Seattle. I'm probably the one from the smallest department. I work for a department of 8 stations. I spent 20 years as a company officer, 17 of which was on the ladder truck. And I spent a lot of time in the training division before being promoted to battalion. And we have our environment. The environment I work in, primarily, probably 90% of it is lightweight. And
wow.
We operate on roofs, on lightweight construction.
I'm anxious to hear this. I really am. Chad.
I'm Chad Christensen. I'm a captain in the Los Angeles County Fire Department, and obviously we're a vertical vent department and have a huge mix of lightweight and conventional construction.
That's great. So I'm going to tell you where I come from. Okay. I've been a chief now for 11 years, so I haven't been on a roof in a while. I do go up on the roof once in a while. I'll act as a roof sector, supervise. Actually, I was just up on a roof probably about 2 weeks ago in a brownstone. And I was captain for a short time, 5 years, and a lieutenant for 7. So the last time I did any actual roof cutting was probably in 1994 when I was still fireman in the squad. I worked in 17 truck, and I did most of my roof cutting in the squad because that's, we were an extra set of hands, and it was natural for us to go up to the roof. So the roofs that I cut, the ones that I have experience in, there's 2 types of roofs. We have inverted roofs. You're familiar with that. The main roof beams are actually at the ceiling level on the top floor, and then they build it up with 2x4s, and it's called also like a rain roof. If you're familiar with the Wallbaum's fire, that was a rain roof. It was inverted, and it collapsed. They do collapse pretty quickly, but it's kind of a localized collapse. The main roof beams are still 2x8s. It's dimensional rubber. It's a very solid roof. And then we have the traditional roofs where the 2x8s are attached right at the roof level, right? And we have this big open cock loft if it's not fire stopped. And if the fire gets up there, it runs because that cock loft is filled with 2x8s, 2x4s, bracing, lath, plaster, decking, the whole thing. And it's dried out. It's been sitting there for probably up to 75 years, maybe even 100 years. And now with the new roofing, they've actually added in some roofs. We have like this insulation on the roof. We have blown-in insulation into the attics, and we have double on the rehab buildings. We have double ceilings, so it's really a very tight, hot space. So I arrive on a scene. This is how I operate. I send usually the squad, or if I have the rescue, whoever comes up first. I establish pretty right away a roof division, and I'll put an officer on the roof. I think that's critical. And for any top floor fire, I feel that the quicker we get a ventilation hole over the fire, we talked about this yesterday, we're going to be much more successful. There's a few steps that we have to take before that. The roof firefighter actually needs to get up there and maybe pop the bulkhead, make sure that they have a little control of the door so we're not pulling fire. We want to take those top floor windows. We want to find where we want to cut. We do our size up and get that hole over the fire. Now, lightweight. I have minimal experience with lightweight. The only thing I know is that like you said, I'm afraid of it because everything I see, everything I read from Dunn is that it's going to collapse, gusset plates, fire in there. It's everybody off the roof, and let's just get the skylights, or let's get the scuttles, or if we have those mushroom caps or whatever, and then get off the roof. So I had a fire 2 years ago, let's say, in a lightweight. It was a 4-story. It's a brand new building. We had a good fire on the top floor, and my guys were doing like I told them, just get up there, do me a favor, get the scuttle, take top floor windows. If there's a skylight, grab it, and don't spend too much time on it. And then another company came, they cut the roof, and we had this big argument back at the firehouse. Did you hear those guys cut that roof? I won't mention who they were, but they cut the roof, and now I'm in the middle because I'm telling my guys, and they said, Chief, what are you gonna do about this? And I'm like, they made a call, they cut it. I wasn't up on the roof. I delegate that to my roof sector, So I'm not gonna micromanage him, and if he made that call, he made that call. So that being said, now I want you to educate me and tell me, are we doing the right thing in my job, or are we being too overly cautious, or you just want to?
I'm just curious, Danny, what was the result of them cutting the roof? What happened?
We got a nice vent.
You had a good vent.
We had a nice vent, and everything went up and out. It was nice.
Everybody got off the roof safely.
And it helped us out, So
When you say lightweight, do you know the actual construction type on that one? Like what was
I'm going to
made
say that it was parallel cord,
of? Wood or steel?
wood,
And flat roof.
flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of composition to the decking and the roofing? Do you know?
I wasn't up there.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you.
What would be typical for decking that? Would it be
3/4 inch.
Okay.
Plywood with asphalt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that. I also, this is the second part of the conversation, because I was talking about. I say roofs. I know you say roofs.
No, I say roof. It
I
rhymes
say
with-
roof still.
Yeah, it's 2 O's like moon. It's not mun. Moon.
But I have in my area, it's a very industrial area, and I go around and I see when the garage doors are open, I see all these lightweight, but they're steel, lightweight steel, and I want to talk about that as well. But let's talk first about, are we being too cautious? Are we being overcautious, or no? You tell me. I really don't know. Want to start, James?
The only thing I'll say is, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Is the only thing I would say is that it has to start with the construction, and looking at what are the strong parts, what are the weak parts of the structure, what parts are actually going to fail first.
Yeah.
And I always bring it back to like the mass of the structural members and looking at the areas that you will see the failure. And guys, and I'm sure the LA County guys and Robbie, guys that are up on the roofs all the time, whenever I ask people this, what's your part that's going to fail first, or where do you get your indications? And it's
Decking,
the decking.
right? If I'm sounding out and something, my rubbish that goes through, hey, we're not moving past that point.
And even before that, you start to feel changes because you get a baseline when you
Yes.
first get on. That's your baseline when you first take the roof, and you make your inspection cut. You figure out what you're working over and what it feels like there in the spot that's supposed to be your area of safe refuge. If something changes, if something's there that wasn't there before or isn't there that should be, that's your mental cue. Stop and figure out what's different. Did I just step over into a different part of the roof that's a totally different area of construction, so it feels different and I need a new baseline? Or have conditions changed as I've moved, and what do I need to do to address that? So yeah, sounding is critical.
So I'll make a comment about that. First, to backtrack on inverted roofs, ones that I'm comfortable with, inverted and traditional roofs, there's a difference. The inverted roof, because there's 2x4s, it's kind of springy. Like I kind of liken it to like almost like a trampoline.
Yeah.
It'll be springy, as opposed to the traditional roof, right? Is the 2x8s are there? It's very solid. You can feel it.
Yeah.
It's solid. Now, you brought up a good point, though. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you what it was supposed to feel like on a lightweight.
Right.
I have no experience with it at all.
So you got to start getting on those roofs before they're on fire and know that baseline all the time.
That's a good point.
So
Yeah,
I think that's key because we have a lot of lightweight construction out
Yes.
in California. And I trust, I haven't been on a roof in a long time either. I've been on chief for a long time, but I trust that they will pay attention to the signs that they see up there. There's a difference between springy and spongy.
Yes. Yep.
And you have to feel it to really know. It's hard to describe, but you have to go by that. And I think more than the construction, it's the phase of the fire and the location of the fire. You have to get some sense. Is it ready to vent itself? I mean, that's what I look for as an incident commander from down at the street level, you know, and I want good communication from the roof. That just scares me, you know, guys on the roof, obviously.
Sure. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough. Yeah. Anyway, I think those are key things to think about.
You know, I'll take a moment. You want to introduce yourself?
Oh,
you just walked in.
Arthur Ashley with Lexington, Kentucky. I'm a captain. I've been there for 25 years.
Excellent. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, we're talking about roofs.
I figured it was roofs. I figured it was lightweight roofs. So it's you know, just expanding on that from where I'm at. We're the just a little bit about us. We're the oldest fire department west of the Allegheny Mountains. We were established in 1775, and we've always been there. I have a structure in my first due from 1791. So I have things from shotguns all the way to high rises in my first due. Queen Anne's, Victorians, Craftsman, everything. So, and lightweight. For me to expand on what we do with lightweight, you know, when we pull up, you know, it's all visual from the street. And I put my air pack on the street because it slows me down, because it makes me stop and look up at the building versus running to the building. It slows me down. I was taught that a long time ago by a captain on the job. And as I'm looking, you know, we look for the volume, the velocity, and the density, and the color. You know, is it the actual the frame of the building burning? What it's burning? Is it black or whatever? And there's times that you can't go to the roof, and you just have to tell your chief, we're not doing it. We can't do it. And so, in my experience, I have never seen anything from a gusset plate failure. I've never seen anything from a domino effect. Once one goes, they all go. Everything that I've seen has been the OSB, the sheathing burn away, and it'll give you a false sense of security as you look up. You know, you look on the ground, it's always steeper than it looks from the ground. So when you get up there, you're looking, you know, those shingles are still there. And if you don't sound good in a pattern all the way around you, and while the guys are cutting, you know, things are changing. And the difference between springy and spongy is absolutely positively there.
Yeah.
It's
another field difference that's different between the West Coast and other areas, particularly the Southwest Coast where you guys are at. Y'all don't get a lot of rain. So
except for this year.
But
yes.
Everybody did.
All right. Yeah. So typically
right.
There's not a lot of rain. And then you start to move, talking with Brian Lynch in Colorado Springs, they're east of the Rockies. They get a lot of the rain stripped out of the clouds that come over. So they don't have to deal with rot. So when you deal with rot, there's a sponginess from rot that is different than the sponginess from fire damage. As OSB starts to dry out and starts to be just weakened by fire, it has a crunchy sponginess that's different than the mushy sponginess from just like there's pine straw and leaves built up on a roof and it's just gotten rotten. There's a totally different feel that, again, you have to know those baselines so that when you feel that as you start to move out, you understand what you're working over.
And that's why it's imperative to get your crews out and walking the roofs and understanding different building construction, building types, you know, and what you have underneath you, you know. In the area that I just recently worked in on the truck, we've got a street that is, you know, probably the original construction is easily 60, 80 years old, Pacific Boulevard or Pacific Avenue, excuse me. But we get up on the roofs and one occupancy will be conventional, then next be lightweight. The next could be conventional. I mean, you know, and we're talking, you know, 3-4 blocks worth of street or buildings that have all kinds of different combinations.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to know is to get up there and check them out before the fire happens. And like you were talking about, getting an inspection cut in there, or once we get that first hole in place, now we got to recognize what kind of construction we're standing on top of and adjust our tactics from there.
That's probably one of the things, Danny, that's a little bit different. And I think, I don't know FDNY's operations that well, but equipment is different, West Coast versus East Coast when it comes to ventilation packages. Our operations on when LA County or LA City or in my area, we follow the LA model. When the ladder gets assigned to the roof, all are going to the roof as opposed to maybe one roofman. And And then when you get up there, you get a lot of intel, as you well know. I mean, I know FDNY takes in a lot of information from the roof, a little bit different information, but there's a lot of intel up there for the IC, for me being back in my climate-controlled SUV, right? There's a lot of intel they can give you on what's going on. They're probably the first ones to know that the roof is going to be coming down before the crews on the interior.
Talking about Hackensack, that's what happened in Hackensack. The battalion chief and the truck crews were the ones that said, hey, this is it. And the battalion chief that was on the roof was the one that ordered everybody out. Right. It just came too late and had radio problems, things like that. And that's so, but your roof crew, like Robbie said, that's your only way of knowing what's going on above everybody's head. Because if it's really burning and guys are really working inside, they won't be able to see the roof from the inside. Right. They'll have no idea what they're working under, nor what condition it's in as they're working underneath it.
You know, the thing also is you got to look at staffing as well. We've got short-staffed companies nationwide. Everywhere I go, it's short-staffed. You know, I'm lucky with 35 to 40 guys in a first alarm response, but it's almost too many sometimes. But the thing about it is when I go to the roof, I'm always the first one on the roof. When I come off, I'm all,
as a captain.
As a captain, that's because, and I'm the last one off the roof. I clear the roof. And the thing about that is because I'm sounding as I go. Now, what I do is this. I'll sound when I am a working boss, meaning that there's only two of us up there. I'm not a supervising boss because I can't supervise because I have to be part of the cut. So I'm usually the guy who will punch the hole while he makes the cut. And so if I'm a supervising boss, it means we've got a full package of guys up there. So guys have a tendency, and I'm guilty of it. You have to tell your faults sometimes, that I get so intense in the hole being cut that I'm not seeing everything going on around me. And I try to make sure that that's going on, you know, what's going on. Radio traffic is a big thing. You can't hear it while the saw is running and stuff. So when I'm a supervising boss, I step away. I've got my radio mic up to my ear. I'm watching this. Do I want to extend off of it? And I will take our LA trash hook, and that's what we use it because it has more surface area. You can take a New York hook and try to turn it over on the 45, 90 degree side. But even if it's a good roof, it's going to go through it because it's sharp. So we use our trash hook, more surface area, and we go all the way around us. I continue to do that all the way around. I've stepped through rot. I've stepped through holes that had burnt after we'd been up there. I've stepped in ones that was my fault, that I didn't pay attention. I mean, we've all been there to some degree because it's a learning process. Once you learn it, you should never stop learning. But the thing about it is that boss on that roof has to maintain everything going on. I mean, even when he's a working boss on these short-staffed companies, because you can get into trouble just like that.
I'm gonna throw a concept at you guys. I'm on the IMT, the FDNY, and believe it or not, I've been to 2 wildland fires. We actually went out. They were so busy that they put us on a wildland fire, and I'm a div soup. And I don't profess to be a wildland guy, but I know how to manage. You know, I was really good. I mean, our division, I remember the branch director, and he saw my what do you call it, the IAP, and he saw we had like 3 pages. He couldn't believe it. He's like, I said, we're good, we got it. But anyway, that's aside, off the track. But what I learned from the wildland guys is that they don't do anything unless leases is in place, right? Yeah, lookouts,
that's right.
Communications, escape routes, and a safe zone. Yep. So I said in my class, I showed this nice video, a real good working fire, real like East Coast type of traditional roof, you know. And I said, we've been doing that unbeknownst to us since I've been on the job. And I said, like you just said, Cap, that how about a lookout? So if you're in the action with that sword, we use K-12s, the old K-12s, and they're very heavy and they're very loud. And you know, if you're entrenched cutting and you're not hearing, you know, so you do need somebody that's a little bit off the side to hear what's going on. So he's also looking, you know, he's watching your back, making sure you don't get caught. I, as an IC, make sure that I have 2 ladders on either side.
That's minimum, yes.
Yeah. And then I asked, you know, your safe zone, where's the firewall? If things go bad, you know, you got to make sure that you're on that firewall. So I think leases could be something that we should be thinking about in our roof ops.
Absolutely.
Because,
it's part of our curriculum.
Is it really?
In our roof operations.
Really?
That is
Cool. That's good.
I think it's something that good roof crews do already. Like you said,
Yeah.
you've been doing it just not by name.
Yeah.
But it's part
Right.
of knowing how to operate correctly on the roof and get things done without having problems.
Because I can tell you, I remember I was a captain and we got called to a fire, and it was top floor fire. It was in a taxpayer, and chief ordered me to go up on a roof and get a line or whatever up there, and I was so focused on what I was doing and I did this, and I stepped over a chasm, probably about 4 feet wide, and I jumped over it, not thinking that it was a parapet wall pulling away. And Eddie thought, one of my firemen, who's now deceased, he died from a 9/11 cancer, but he said to me, Cap, you see what you just did? I'm like, engine A2 to command. They said, I think we better get people off the roof, but you get so focused on what you want to do that you can lose sight of what's
Absolutely.
happening, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I step away. I step far away where I can hear. So when I step away, when I'm a supervising boss, I've got accountability, I've got safety, I've got comms, I've got all that stuff, So, and we've got hand signals. Of course, we can't talk. We have hand signals, and those guys will turn around and look at me, and they'll give me a hand signal. And if they want to ask me, Cap, you want to extend it? I give them a hand signal or whatever, and they'll extend it, or I'll give them the hand signal. No, it's time to get off the roof. They exit, I'm behind them.
Yeah, we do that too. We have a one slap, it's a stop. 2 slaps, cut. 3 slaps is to stop and shut the saw down. And 4, if I give you 4 slaps and a pull, that means there's something going on.
Sure.
Yeah. So another thing that we've been doing since probably beginning of the fire, in FDNY. I mean, that was that nonverbal communication. So a captain from 120 truck, I worked with him. He was a lieutenant. We were both in the fire factory. He made a comment to me one time, and I put it in one of my articles. He said that, working on the roof at top floor fire is like the most dangerous place to be at any fire. So let's get to now the question that I brought up yesterday about actually cutting let's say the lightweight wood parallel cord truss. If I go back now to New York and I talk to Chief Richardson and say, Chief, just out in FDIC, and I think we should start looking at maybe not being so strict with our policy on cutting truss roofs. What can I go back to him with to prove my case?
I would say it could be done, but we need to make sure we have good SOPs, SOGs in place and enforce them, practice them, because you can't take the judgment away from those that you delegate to for that job. It's just it's critical, and you have to trust their judgment, but they also have to train to get to that level to make that call. But because I think you'll find that you just really don't know what you're working on when you arrive at 2 a.m. or what have you. So you really have to depend on those things like sounding and of course, like you said, Rob, you got to get inside, you got to get on the roof for fire prevention or just to train, and then you really kind of get a better feel for what you're dealing with, hopefully, when you get the call.
So let me ask you a question. I'm going to come back and say, well, we use a K-12. We don't have those big chainsaws that you guys have. And when my roof firefighter puts that saw into the roof, he's going to get a nice piece of that roof. What happens if we cut the truss, if we cut the top cord? Is that a problem?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
how do I get around that?
I disagree a little bit. The top cord is the least important thing out of that entire truss. What happens when you put a kerf in the top cord?
compresses
It
together.
compresses. It's
together.
under compression.
Yeah.
It's going to push back
Tension
together.
and compression.
What you lose then is your lateral stability of the top cord. So you've weakened it. If it gets loaded eccentrically or in a torsion load, then you've weakened it in that manner. But trusses are designed to load.
Yeah.
They're designed to load vertically and axially. So if they stay loaded that way, you haven't done that much to a lightweight truss, to a wood lightweight truss.
Yeah.
It'll pinch closed. It'll pinch the
Yeah.
ball. Yes,
I'm with you.
and you probably won't notice.
Yeah.
If you do the same thing to the bottom cord, you've ruined that truss.
Yeah.
So I disagree. I think I would not advise people just zip through trusses, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you happen to start to damage the top cord on
Let me
one.
ask you, is the risk worth the reward?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
But you're saying it like that's a false dichotomy. You don't have to zip through the top of the trusses. You can feel them. Arthur teaches
Well,
a K-12.
Even
Yeah,
with the
it's
K-12?
It's
think
less,
that'd be
but it's
tough.
it can still
Yeah.
be done.
Well, K-12 is like you're going to cut what 4.5 inches at most.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have your decking, then you're going to have, you know, your lightweight. You know, if it's a 2x4, you know, it's 3.5 inches. So plus your decking and stuff. So
unless they're laid flat.
unless they're laid flat. So we're cutting down right to it. When we have cut them with the K-12, and you know, and you can feel it. You can hear it too. You know, so yeah, it binds.
When
So
it hits when the density changes,
it's just like when we go to the roof in Lexington, and these West Coast guys are probably going to smile when I say this. We do a dice cut. We drop it 90 degrees vertical. You'll never cut through a truss ever again because you got more surface area of your bar hitting the truss. You'll feel it every time I teach it. You drop it in, go back, feel that truss, draw it forward, come up, score it where the truss is. Go across we go across 5 feet because the day of the 4x4 hole's over. You need to start at least by 4x8. You need to get more real estate opened up on these fires. They don't burn harder, they burn faster. So when that company's making the push, I want more real estate opened up. So we'll go 5 feet over, and then, you know, we'll go 8 feet over, 5 feet down. And, you know, we don't have to louver it then because I've already marked everything. If the engine loses water or they're not ready yet, I don't have to punch it. And if they lose water, the beauty about a louver is I can close it back up. But with that chainsaw method, I teach that, and guys stop cutting through trusses just like that. And that's good for us on lightweight as well.
If you don't have
I totally agree.
if you don't have chainsaws, it doesn't prevent you from doing it.
Yeah,
Just like it doesn't prevent you from cutting it, if you have 2x4s on top of 2x12s for your inverted roof. If you cut through one of those, then what? Do you guys worry about that? No. So, but it's the same thing. That's what everything's sitting on.
Yeah.
If you cut through enough of them, you might get a little floppy spot. But
And the rotary saw, excuse me, the rotary saw is more aggressive, and it's faster than a chainsaw. You know, we've raced them in pitch and flat, and it outruns the chainsaw. But you can still feel it though. I mean, if you've got a guy here's the number one problem I see traveling the country teaching: saw experience.
Yeah.
In large cities, even in the large cities that we go and teach, there's little to no saw experience. And you can't blame the guy on the line if he's not going to fires, he's not getting the experience. And if they're not training, that's not his fault because, you know, that's a lot more than just getting out in the bay and doing something, you know. So I think it comes with a lot of guys who've worked a long time who, you know, you have to have a feel for things, you know, hand tools, objects that run on gasoline, you know, all this stuff. And we get a feel for it. And sometimes it's hard to teach that feel to guys if we can't get them in.
You have to have that.
Yeah, well, that's why, I mean, you'll see a lot of our truck stations or, you know, in the areas where the trucks are, we'll have pitch roof props, flat roof props, lightweight props, conventional props, you know, to give those guys that experience because we're all going to less fires than we used to.
Right.
And that's the only way they're going to get comfortable when you add decking or you add, you know, tile. You add, you know, I mean,
I used to take pallets and put them in the yard. When I was a captain, I used to put pallets in the yard.
Yeah, they work.
Put some plywood on top, and I tell the guys go cut it.
I mean, that's the way that you have to continue working on your craft or your skill.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to be doing something like roof operations. If you're not regularly practicing that and going through it, then you could be off the day that you're off could be a challenge for you. But you know, I'll go back to when we were just like your operations and the West Coast operations are a little bit different. I mean, the first thing that it ends up happening, and I think a lot of this came from LA City and LA County, is that that inspection cut. The very first thing, they go to the roof. We know we have a working fire. They're going to cut a hole so that we can figure out what type of roof we're on. Is it lightweight or is it a conventional type construction? That changes their operations. That information is relayed back so everybody kind of knows, at least in my department, it's relayed back so that I know what we're dealing with. Then how they travel on the roof. If it's lightweight, they're going to travel the perimeter of the roof, and then they're going to use large beams, or they're going to do a diagonal travel if they're on trusses. Whereas if we were on a conventional roof, you're probably going to travel just on solid ground. You're going to be sounding the entire way. In addition to that, we're going to be looking for where is the fire in relation to where we're at and moving. Right. So we do smoke indicator holes. I don't know if you guys use the same term. but we make
Right.
holes in the membrane as we're moving, so we can see
Just like plunge cuts.
Plunge
Just to
cuts,
see
yeah.
what the,
Yeah.
curve
See what's
cuts.
going
It's the
on,
same
yeah.
thing, so we
Same.
know what's going on underneath us.
This is with the truss.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
with
with lightweight.
anything.
With
With
any
anything.
roof,
Almost
with
anything.
anything, we'll drop it and we'll see what kind of smoke or if there's fire coming out. You know,
Yeah.
it's going to tell us what's
Yeah.
going on underneath of us.
It's one of your diagnostic tools along with sounding, smoke indicator cuts. So you'll drop a kerf in some material, but a kerf is too small in some roofs or it'll melt closed.
Right.
So you may have to do a small triangle, just enough to, it may need to be big enough to put the handle of your tool in so that you can push down insulation from the inside and get an accurate feed from it. But the whole goal is to see what the smoke conditions are where you're at so that as you move along the roof, you know when you're getting close to the fire. And you also have something behind you telling you if you miss something.
And that's where that's where that comes in, where as an officer staying back working with a crew, as we've traveled out, you got, if you're dealing with lightweight, you gotta give yourself space. Distance and sounding are the two things that are your safety. So we would travel to the point where we would have, be it that it's dark black smoke or fire coming from one of our smoke indicator holes, and then fall back. We call that a forward smoke indicator hole. Yeah. Fall back. Now, me as an officer, I'm staying back 20 feet from where the crew's working. I'm watching the forward smoke indicator hole. I'm watching where they're cutting. I'm watching the smoke indicator holes behind us. So now I've got a perspective of how the fire is moving, what progress are we having on the roof. And then the key is for me to communicate that back. Everybody knows that the safety is moving back towards the perimeter on a flat roof, panelized or truss.
So the communication he just mentioned is important. You as a chief on the ground, what they're doing up there, even if they never cut a hole, having those diagnostics, having those eyes up there, having that feedback helps you with guys inside. If they never move away from the edge of the roof, just having them on the roof allows them to give you so much feedback with whatever's going on. May give you some signs even without them cutting anything. If you already have penetrations in the roof that are showing smoke or fire, things like that, having somebody on the roof, even if it's lightweight, is still beneficial.
I think another key piece is that communication between interior crews or fire attack crews. They could offer some sense of the conditions inside that will, I think, help the roof crews make that decision.
Biggest challenge, we've been talking coordination and coordinating fire attack for years, but in LA County, we've really been doing a great job of it, or better job of it, probably the last 6-8 years. And the challenge is getting a hold of that officer on the inside, though.
That's right.
Because you're in a zero visibility environment, high heat, you're working, and so it's starting that conversation early. The minute I step off the truck and grab my BA, I'm getting a hold of fire attack. We're here. What do you need? Where do you want it? And hey, we're good. Get up there, get us a hole in AB corner, wherever, and if they don't know, then that's when I make my decision based on the conditions that I see.
And as an IC, if I don't hear that coordination, I prompt it a little bit.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Do you guys use the acronym SCIRTS in LA? Have you heard it before?
No.
Okay. So that came from, is it San Bernardino?
San Bernardino
Okay.
County.
So it's an Inland Empire area thing. So Southern California, but not LA.
They get their share of fires too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the other Southern California. But in that area, and that's where I picked it up from guys from down there, teaching at the Quad County Truck Academy. SCIRTS is sounding, known fire and victim location, interior reports. So the I is very critical. Interior reports help. Roof division. So reports that if you're the second truck that gets to the roof and you already have somebody up there, they're going to give you indication of, hey, this is what we got, where you need to be. And then tick. So if you're cutting smoke indicators and you're getting smoke out of them that's a certain temperature, and you're working over especially metal, you're working over steel bar joists and things like that, that gives you an indication of, hey, this is my buffer. Once that smoke starts if the smoke outside the roof is a certain temperature, the smoke inside the roof is probably hotter than that, and you're starting to do things to the steel that's underneath you. And so that's SCIRTS is an acronym to determine where your hole goes, and sounding comes first in that for a reason.
It's funny. I'm going to show my age now because what you just said. When I was a probie, and I was up on the roof, we'd find a soil pipe, and I'd just put my hand on the bottom of the soil pipe.
Yeah.
If it was hot,
Yeah.
that's when we start cutting.
Yeah.
But we have a few minutes, but you guys, you all made some great points. But, I have to tell you, in the last year or two, I've seen videos of fires that I was at where I was the top floor sector. Because in New York, if I'm the second chief in, I'm ops chief. The IC stays in the street. I go up to the fire floor, and I become the fire sector. We say sector in New York, but it's division, whatever you want to call it. But and I've 2 fires I was at. The first was a 3-story wood frame, and I was on the top floor, and I had 2 hose lines going either way. Guys were pulling ceilings, and the chief is outside, and he's calling me, and he's like, Danny, look, I want to pull everyone out. We want to go to tower ladder. I'm like, nope, we're good, chief. We're good. And, I was pretty confident that we were going to be okay. And then the second one was a 5-story renovated type 3, heavy fire in a cock loft, but I had, again, 2 hand lines in both departments, heavy fire. But, I said, we're good. I'm telling you, he's calling me like, come on, we're pulling everyone out. I'm like, we're good. Well, some citizen app or some video I saw from a guy that took the video, I'm looking at the fire, and I'm like, oh, man. I mean, I couldn't believe the volume of fire on both these fires. I mean, it was just fire, like 20-foot, fully involved roof, And I'm seeing inside one perspective, and he's on the outside looking at this, and so, Vinny Dunn talks about that in his Collapse of Burning Buildings when he talks about trust. And he says that, especially in a bowstring truss, that, if the guys on the roof have the better perspective than the guys inside, right? So
that's
kind of what ties in with that. Right?
That's one thing that it kind of got brought up at the beginning, but Vinny talks in his books, in both, like his second book as well, that he always talks about location and duration, like you kind of touched on, right? They have to know, that's a big thing that he always does.
Yeah. In a sense, too, Vinny Dunn is iconic. He been through the war years. He was a deputy. He's from my old neighborhood. We come from the same place. And Vinny and myself, I think when you're broken in the fire department a certain way, you just get used to doing things a certain way. And things are changing all the time in the fire service. And I'm still in the game. Vinny's now retired, but you lose as you get older, and you're around longer. You're starting to lose more touch. Like I haven't cut a roof in 25 years. And I cut a lot of roofs. When I was in the squad, I cut a lot of roofs, and things have changed so much. You're talking about things that like I can't get my head around. Tick,
He should come to our class.
What I would say.
Maybe you need a class for old chiefs.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we're doing a truck academy in our county, and that's the one thing we want to do is tie in the battalion chiefs, because one of the
That's
things
a great idea.
is that the battalions, well, in my area, battalions, a lot of them didn't work on ladder trucks the way we were because we've grown so much.
Yeah.
But in areas like where they've had strong truck cultures, the battalions get out, and then they've been gone for 8 years. And they remember it in their time.
Yes.
And things
That's
do
right.
change.
That's
And so
right.
bringing the battalions to the truck academy and doing that is important. So I'd invite you out to come out to one of the truck academies in the West and see what it's like.
Or come to Wichita Hot. The three of us will be teaching an 8-hour vent class at Wichita Hot, where it's coast to
And
coast.
so I need like a refresher.
Well,
New York is old buildings and old chiefs.
The cool thing is the class is coast to coast rooftop workshop, and I pulled guys from the West Coast and guys from the East Coast because the construction is so different.
Yeah.
So that people from the different areas could get a feel for the operations from those different areas and learn from each other like this.
Well, this is great. We're getting the hook, like the old Ed Sullivan show, with the big hook, like let's go. So this has been great. I thank FDIC, Tammy, for having us. And
Thank you for the opportunity.
And,
This is really great.
Thanks. Yeah.
I'll see you guys on the radio. Be safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our live show at FDIC. My name is Dennis Rubin. I'm going to be your host for about the next 45 minutes as we talk about three incredibly important topics. The topics that are something on the mind of every firefighter, every fire chief in America. First, we're going to have a great discussion about Operation Mayday. We have the inventor, I'm not sure if that's the correct term, I'll introduce shortly, of Operation Mayday. And I think that's going to lead into great discussion about accountability in the hazard zone and what program about accountability as well as Mayday would be complete if we didn't spend a little time and talk about incident command. I'm joined by two incredible fire service dignitaries, folks that have been with us for a very, very long time that have just done outstanding work. First, I'd like to introduce Don Abbott. Don Abbott retired as an assistant fire chief in the greater Indianapolis area to go on to become one of the executives in the Phoenix Fire Department. And as he retired from there, he's taken on so many projects, I'm not certain that I can list them all. If you're an old person, such as I'm getting to be, you would remember Abbottville, and Don, certainly along with his beautiful wife, Bev, were the hosts and the folks that put that together. So let me say welcome to Don, and you may have an opening comment or two.
Thank you. Basically, we've been doing Project Mayday. We're starting to enter our 5th year. We're now just over 6,000 Maydays. I think we're learning a lot over those 4.5 years or almost 5 years now that basically is starting to see trends in the fire service, things that have been there that we just didn't recognize because we either didn't have the data or the data that we did have was not as complete as what it probably should be.
So looking forward to digging into that topic. And also joining with us, he's not in the studio quite yet. He's coming in from yet another meeting at the amazing FDIC 2019, where we've had about 40,000 visitors worldwide here in Indianapolis, Indiana. What a great, great day will be Bruce Farner. Bruce Farner started his career in Phoenix, Arizona Fire Department in 1967 and completed a complete career there after retiring, of course. Bruce was perhaps one of the first safety officers for a fire department operationally with Phoenix. He went on to be fire chief in several other communities. He'll be joining us shortly, and we'll say hello. And again, there's so many activities happening at FDIC, whether it's networking, training, making presentations, or visiting probably the $5 billion worth of apparatus and equipment that's on display. So again, Bruce will be back with us pretty quick. With that said, Don, what got you so interested in getting started with this Project Mayday? Why in the world did you tackle this? Because I know it's such a large project.
Well, about 4, or actually it's probably closer to 5.5 years ago, I read an article in a trade publication. And the more I read the article, the more my BS meter begged, because I couldn't figure out where the information was coming from. So I waited about a month to see what the letters to the editor were. And the letters to the editors basically said what I thought. And so I know the individual who wrote the article, and I called him up and talked to him for probably about an hour. And a lot of it was old information or stories or rumors of Maydays. So I thought, well, that's not really a very good way to approach the problem. So I started looking for statistics and data and other information. I first started at the fire academy in the library, couldn't find what I was really looking for. Then went to NFPA and asked them if they were monitoring or checking it, and no, they weren't. And then I went to the near miss group and sort of looked at some of the things that they were doing and some of the data that they were trying to retrieve, then decided it needed to be in more depth. So basically, that's what we've been doing. Is we have 3 surveys that we send out. One is a baseline survey, which is about 100 questions, deals with number of firefighters, number of runs, square miles, all the basic stuff. Then component number 2 is 194 questions, and it's strictly about the Mayday. We get audio tapes, videotapes, body cams, helmet cams, dash cams. Then I asked for tactical worksheets. I asked for a variety of things that the fire department has that was done by the incident commander. Then we review all that information. And basically it found that the best thing that we have in most cases is the audio tapes, because they pretty much tell the story. So we listen to the audio tapes 2 and 3 times, if not more in some cases. Then once we have looked at the Mayday, then we'll send out a third component. And the third component is basically, what are you doing to fix the problem? And that's the one that's been the most disturbing, because we're finding that most people aren't doing a lot. You know, they don't review the SOPs, they don't review their training, and most of them think it's not going to happen again. So they don't take it probably as serious as they should.
As a host, I typically don't jump in and talk about content, but this is one time I must. I had a chance to serve on the initial committee that the International Association of Fire Chiefs put together, Don, and it was to look at 2 components. One was a critical decision-making experience called crew resource management, and the other was near-miss reporting. Well, near-miss reporting has taken on a life of its own. Some incredible work have been done by amazing people, but the problem, though, and I think what you're doing is drilling down deep enough to fix it, is we see one more person jumping off a roof, or one more firefighter kicking through a wall. It looks like the building is giving birth, or one more firefighter slipping and falling, or we hear about one more firefighter fatality, but there's no discussion about how to fix it, with the exception of NIOSH. And I think your work has been absolutely amazing in that not only do you identify the problem, you go on to be specific about what occurred, and then you talk about what's it going to take for us as a business, as a organization, as a service to get out of that pothole. That's really what's attracted me to be here. Let me say that Bruce has joined us, and I'd like for him to say hello to our listeners. We have probably about 30 million firefighters all right, so maybe it's not quite that many, but Bruce,
we don't have that many firefighters in the United States.
Oh, from the world.
1.3 million. All over the world. Not quite 30 million, Chief Rubin, but we got a bunch.
Did you count them all?
No.
All right.
I'm looking at the microphone and trying to count.
Welcome. And if you want to say a comment or two about Bruce Varner, would be a perfect time.
Bruce Varner is here. Bruce Varner started his career in Phoenix, Arizona. Proudly spent 25 years there, went to Carrollton, Texas for 12 years, went to Santa Rosa for seven years, retired in 2010, stay active with the Institution of Fire Engineers, and several projects, including getting to hang out with Don Abbott from time to time, and whenever you let me with you.
We're very, very blessed to have you. Don has been describing Project Mayday, why, what has occurred with data that he's been able to collect so far. And I'd like one thing that really spoke to me, Don, and I think Bruce will be able to come in as well, were the keys when you know you're likely going to experience a Mayday.
Yes.
Can you hit a couple of those?
Sure.
Or as many as you care?
One of the things that we did last year is we put a lot of people, 30 people in a room, and for 10 and a half days, and it was probably the most painful experience I've ever had, listened to about 5,000 audio tapes of Maydays, and we scorecarded them. And the idea of scorecarding them was we were looking for different triggers.
Trends.
Yes.
Trends and triggers.
Triggers that basically we were hearing over the radio. And when we were completely done, we sort of calculated the information and basically came up with 16 of triggers that if you hear one of these, you should be really listening to the radio. What we have found, there's a difference between hearing and listening. We hear the radio, but we don't sometimes listen to it very well as incident commanders. So if you get one, that should perk your attention. If you get two, it should really perk your attention and pay attention to the environment, situational awareness from a IC's perspective, and really start asking some questions of those crews if you're not getting the answers that you think you need. And then usually when we hear the third or the fourth trigger, it's the Maydays are coming. It's not too far behind.
Fire above us?
Fire above us.
Fire below us?
Fire below us. We have not found the seat of the fire for at least, we've been in there 15 minutes and still haven't found the seat of the fire. Running low on air. Blocked exits. The one that's been that sort of jumps out a little bit at us that we're trying to sort of deal with is that we've had a number of the Maydays where it's a crew of 3 or 4. Somebody has a problem, whether it's an SCBA, a physical problem or whatever, and we send them out by themselves. And they get in trouble even further or worse. And now it's a true Mayday that's not in the same general vicinity that command probably thinks they are, and is not really probably sure, because we only found that in 40% of the cases, did the company officer actually tell command, I'm sending a guy out with a problem. They just send them out. And now we don't know where they're at between where they were doing in the door.
We're going to get the accountability in just a while. We hope our folks stay with us. We're broadcasting live from FDIC. I'm going to go back in Chief Arner's memory bank, and you put together, along with Chief Brunacini, rest his soul in the incredible work he did, a program, the Frank Cheatham story, The End of the Line. And as I can recall, the items that Don has described about precursors, knowing that we're potentially getting close to a situation that's going to cause a Mayday. Can you hit a couple of those? And I know you've got many other stories to probably share with our listeners.
Certainly. And they got to the end of their line. They hadn't found the fire. They got off the line. The level of heat is increasing. We can't find our way back to the line. We're lost in here. Smoke conditions changed from light smoke conditions to extremely heavy smoke conditions. So you have those precursors coming right along. Fortunately, crews were able to locate them and get them out. One of the members was in full arrest at the time that they were removed from the building, and fortunately was brought back and survived. Thanks for the paramedics that were on the scene, the fire department paramedics that were on the scene of that.
Probably 20, 25 years before this incredible project Mayday has started was the Frank Cheatham End of the Line story. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Now, Dennis, I want to remind you of an incident because I use it occasionally. Is when you were in Norfolk, one of the many times that you kind of moved around a little bit.
Thank you for that. I always appreciate a person pointing out that the Rube can't keep a job, but I'm lucky enough to be back on the radio today.
You went to a church fire one night based on things you were hearing on the radio. And when we go down this list is we have fire over our head. We've got increasing heat conditions in here. We can't find the fire. We can't find the fire. We've got debris and blocked exits. And you gave an excellent program about that. And I honestly, that's what, 20 some years ago at this point.
Probably, yeah. Honestly, it's getting close. I was going to say probably a little less, but you're right about correct about 2001. And the one trigger that I think Don would say, look out, be careful, it's coming, was the battalion chief asked, what's your location in the building? And the company came back almost instantaneously, clear, calm, collected, but nonetheless said, ma'am, that's a darn good question. I'm not going to use the word that he used because I'm afraid FDIC will never let me talk on the radio, but that's pretty clear. They were lost. Yes. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So again, I think what Don has done is to begin making sense out of all of these episodic cases. Again, I go back to the Cheatham story simply because that's the first time I'd ever seen anybody, you and Chief Brunacini, take pieces of that apart, put it in a video format, and learn from it. As a rule, you hear about it if it's a fatality or very sad or a serious injury, but we didn't learn a lot about it, I think, until the Cheatham. I'm going to give you two at least credit for getting us started on that trail. And I think Don, at this point, is beginning to tie all the loose ends and making us so much smarter about what's going on in Maydays.
Well, I think part of the problem that in Frank Cheatham's incident, and we see it a lot, is especially in commercial buildings, as we go in with a residential mentality. Everything that we do is small, designed for a residential fire attack, search, and everything that supports it. But you're in a commercial building, 35,000, 100,000, 700,000 square foot building. It's different. So you can't treat it like a residence fire. And if you do, you're going to end up getting in trouble.
You know, the other part that you have begun to make sense out of is the number of Maydays. We tend to have blinders and think about our job, our department, our volunteer operation, or maybe the area or the region. We don't take a look nationally. And one of the things you said that I find extraordinary, and again, backed up by science documentation, is how often do we have Maydays in America?
Yes. We 5.5 a day. And I believe there's probably closer to 10 to 15 a day.
Would you please say that all over again?
Yes, I believe we get 5.5 every day. And again, it's through text messaging, emails, telephone calls, alerts, all sorts of different things. But I believe that we only get about a third of what's going on out there because it's voluntary, you know. So.
I track Twitter. I know I've got a few Twitter followers. I'm thankful for that. And I saw where they had one. Again, I wouldn't have believed it, but I saw where they had one in the Outer Banks in North Carolina, tuned into the radio station. 2 members had gotten lost. Thank goodness they showed up, and there wasn't a whole lot of pomp and circumstance. So I think the documentation is right. But I do have a challenge, I think, for you, and that is I think we've got to start incorporating North America. In other words, begin this same process and include our brothers and sisters north of the border in Canada. The reason why I say it, it would be so interesting to do the comparisons between the two groups. And the look you're giving me, I'm pretty sure that must have already started.
It started about a year ago. We're now tracking the Canadian Maydays.
I would love to see the two separate. Of course, I want to see it amalgamated.
Yeah.
But I just get a sense, I always do, that we are right always at the jagged edge, have the most injuries and the most fatalities. And it's nothing to be proud of. It's something that we ought to be ashamed of. And I'd love to see the comparison. But I think also to have that information put together in an amalgamated aggregate way is also going to be important too.
Oh, I think so. You know, the last group that was just in here was talking about roof operations. And when we break, it is the third major cause of Maydays is roof operations. But when we broke down the roof operations, one of the things that we found is that 39% of the victims of roof Maydays aren't truck people. They're on overtime as a firefighter. They're in a fill-in position. They normally don't work on a truck. So they're doing
amount of experience, questionable amount of training.
Exactly. Or the company officer's not familiar with what they do or don't know. So they may put them in positions assuming they know some things when they really probably don't.
Or the company officer is the acting person that day.
Yeah, or you get a company officer who's acting that day. Yes, I mean we're seeing that a lot in trends. If I would say there was a trend out there, it is that we're doing some things that we got to sort of relook at. I mean, the company officer. I think many of these Maydays that we see are predictable. If I'm a battalion chief and I'm looking at this roster right here, and I've got 5 stations in my battalion, and I look at one of those stations, there's a captain on overtime from a different shift. The driver is a move up, and one of the firefighters is on overtime also. And the 4th firefighter, it looks like he's still on probation. You know, that sort of should give you an idea that at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's probably one of the crews you ought to be watching.
I had a chance to be with one of my mentors who unfortunately recently passed away. And while at a conference, they had rolled an engine, 2 probationers, 1 firefighter acting officer, and the other firefighter moved up the driver. Essentially no designated adult in that fire company. I'm going to move to Bruce, and I'm going to ask him about, at least my perception is once we don't have accountability, we're set up for the Mayday. Yeah. We could talk all day about it, but I'd like you to mention how folks can access Mayday information and how can they help.
Basically, we have a website project, mayday.net. There's almost 350 slides on there. You can download any of the information, and you can use it however you want in a company or department or a regional level. I just tell people don't change the data, but you can use anything else that's basically in there. Then starting this next quarter, we'll be adding dash cams, helmet cams, body cams. And then we're going to actually put out there because I think it's a necessity that we haven't done well, is we're going to put out some audio tapes of really well-run Maydays. And then we're going to put some audio tapes of ones not so well-run, because I don't think sometimes we have good examples of what a Mayday is supposed to sound like or look like. And I'm hoping that by putting these 4 audio tapes of really well-run Maydays, one involving basically 2 firefighters involved in a Mayday, will be a good example of what they're supposed to sound like. Because there's no panic in anybody's voice. There's no, they knew exactly where they were. They knew how many people should have been on the crew. They had, one of them will have a communications issue, but they figured it out and fixed it in less than 45 seconds. So I think that what we're trying to do is present all that information as much as possible. If you get a Mayday, if you go to the website, there's a reporting mechanism that you can use to basically report Maydays.
And again, the address, please.
It's a projectmayday.net.
And without a doubt, when we begin dissecting accidents and injuries and fatalities, it's almost always a chain of events that occur. And again, the person that taught me that is with us on the radio, Bruce Varner. I see the accountability piece. When we fail to do that, we've set ourselves up for the Mayday. You know, to me, accountability is who the members are that are inside. What are they doing? Where are they at? What are their paths of exit? What are the conditions? And has a RIT team been put into motion? So with that said, does anybody, and if so, how can we capture that and replicate it, do accountability in the hazard zone well?
Dennis, the Brits have been doing an accountability process for many, many years. And they call it BA Control, or their SCBA Control Board. And they're actually have the amount of air that people are going in with, a calculation that determines when they should be exiting with sufficient reserve air to come out of that building. They do reminders to that when they approach that. Now, having traveled to the UK quite a number of times in the last few years, it's not quite as good as described when you start talking to the operators, but it is still several levels above the way that we account for people on air inside a building. You know, and while we're on that, is within the NFPA process for how SCBAs are made. In NFPA 1981 is the SCBA standard, and they changed the low air alarm, and they changed that to 1/3 based on experiences of 1/3 to get in, 1/3 to operate, 1/3 to get out. Unfortunately, we're hearing that a number of people are saying, oh, cool, I've got more air to stay in. And I'll go to Don's Project Mayday, is we're seeing people that made a determination that they could stay longer because they had more air. They had a cylinder that provides them a longer time period, and the low air alarm goes off. And I think Don's talked about in a number of the Maydays, the radio tapes, they can hear the vibra-alert, they can hear the low air alarm going off, and they are continuing to operate when the Mayday occurs.
Well, after the time they should start to evacuate.
When that's first started, it's time to be working your way out of the structure. And the thinking process of that committee, and there was a lot of discussion about it, was moving to higher than 25%. They were seeing 25% just wasn't doing it, particularly in the 2215 cylinders. It wasn't doing it. And by making that change, giving a little bit more of a reserve time to properly exit the building. But we've got people that are saying, oh no, I've got more air, I can stay in longer. That's not the case. Is when the low air alarm goes off, the crew should be exiting together. Don just said that. You've got low air, Rube, you go ahead and go out. The rest of us are going to stay. No, it's not okay.
That's one of the indicators that we're looking for. That's a precursor, most likely. 45 cubic feet of air is not a lot.
No, it's not.
Yep. So I think that's a message that we truly have to get out. And I think every company, every single company in Great Britain has a BA control board.
Absolutely.
So when you go to events, and there's probably only two people that go to more incidents and visit more fire departments than me, the two chiefs that I'm with, sometimes we don't worry about accountability in the hazard zone at all, do we?
No.
You know, I can, one of the numbers I have embedded in my head is that when we have a Mayday, only about 44% of the time are we doing accountability in accordance with our own SOPs.
Say that number one more time.
About 44% of the
So if
time.
we were getting a letter grade in high school or college, what would 44% equate to?
F.
Pretty much a
Yeah,
big fat
you know,
F.
and it's they have it in their own SOPs, you know, and they do it hopefully in training, but they just don't follow it when they're supposed to. You know, they sort of pick and choose when they do accountability. Accountability should be done on every run because that's where you grow the habit and maintain the consistency of doing it. And we just don't do it. I don't know why. It's just we don't do it.
We've all heard it.
Yeah.
Give me 5 more minutes, Chief. We can get this fire.
Yeah.
I don't want to show my age, but my first FDIC, much like you, was in Memphis. And there was a lieutenant from the Cincinnati Fire Department who did a presentation I'll never forget, but it was about what he saw in a face piece. And he had a warehouse on fire as a lieutenant. And of course, his picture and context was this much. And of course, flames were coming through the roof, out of the floor above. And as he's being screamed at to get out of the building, he's begging for more time. He was brave enough and bold enough to stand up and say, boy, did I miscalculate. Thank goodness it didn't end in a disaster. But you couldn't have said it better. I think we see that time and time and time again, where that big picture is either trying to be transmitted or forgotten to be transmitted, and the folks inside want to just struggle with that, arm wrestle with that. I think the third piece, and it's so critically important, I'm going to steal a comment from Chief Joe Starnes, another one of my mentors and just excellent person, is that it takes 3 legs at least to hold up a stool. And I think the third leg is incident command. And I think some folks have done just an incredible job, and some have fallen flat on their face. I'm going to ask you about the importance, Chief Varner, of incident command, and how are we doing? What's your opinion of our report card nationally?
It's interesting because that came up in one of the classes that I've attended here at FDIC, that the command at many times was severely lacking for a variety of reasons. And the gentleman that was addressing that went on to say that they weren't following their own standard operating procedures for command in where this was occurring. So we have departments all over this country that would get the top grade for the way that they do incident command, for the way that they manage incidents, for the way that they manage accountability. Unfortunately, we also have a lot of departments on the other end of the scale where it is not being done. You know that I'm a strong advocate of the blue card command system because it is a in-place system. It requires consistent training. It requires CE to maintain it. There's a curriculum that you go through to get certified as an IC. How do you get to be an IC in other places? Well, Dennis, you've been with us a long time. Why don't you ride the car today?
Rite of passage almost.
Yes.
Instead of having a structured way, I'm being put on the car because I'm the senior captain, perhaps.
I am a strong advocate of task books, and just reviewed one for a fire department that I'm doing some work with, and they sent me their task book to be an acting battalion chief. And it is about 40 pages of things that have to be checked off, that you've been reviewed with a battalion chief, with a senior level officer, before you get to be an acting battalion chief. And in their system, that means you're going to go out with the battalion chief on calls before you get to go out by yourself on calls.
You know, in a way, what's so disappointing about that is we've had that since the very first paramedic.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I just model what we do for National Registry. It would be interesting to correlate on the departments that Bruce is mentioning that really do a good job. And there's plenty of them out there with the incident command system process. And there's always going to be small variations. I think if you go back to the national textbooks, that there's no pure system, but there are certainly attainments and standards within that system. My guess is that's going to be the same departments that do well with accountabilities.
Yes.
And the same departments, I got to say this, that have the best Maydays of all. And before you respond to that, the best Mayday is which one?
Not having
the one that we have been able to prevent.
Yes.
Chief Brunacini did a program about preventing Maydays, and we should never get too far afield from having a really clear understanding. We put those components in place. We should become Mayday proof. Not that there is such a thing to guarantee that it won't happen. Strange, crazy things occur. But when you find yourself in a situation and doing the opposite of what you both have been professing here today, well, I don't have to tell you. Another thing that I would love to see sooner rather than later is a comparison between us and our great neighbors to the north about accountability. Once again, my feeling is, my absolute gut instinct says that probably Canada does a much better job with accountability in the hazard zone than the U.S. Do you have enough data to opine on that, or should I just stick my foot in my mouth and leave it there?
We don't have enough data, but with the data that we do, they do accountability much better than we do.
We really have got to take some of the lessons. We do. And again, I think starting back with Great Britain, that was another incredibly important point that Bruce brought in. That's a department that's probably had the BA control system for 30 years, longer.
Keep
40 years, maybe.
It's post World War II.
So a little bit longer than that, going on 70 years. Yeah. So we have to learn those items. I know we like to be fiercely independent. I know our nation was built that way. I know that we've always been the folks that have started the revolutions, but I think it's high time for us to put ourselves in a position where we have clear command standards that are across the board, where we find ourselves in a situation that we can ask those 6 questions of accountability and, of course, prevent the Mayday. And if we can't prevent it, be able to put our video clip, our audio clip on the internet and say we're very proud of that because it was managed properly and we got the members out safely.
Yes.
We're getting close to the end of the time. I always hate that. And again, it's been about 2 years since I've been on the radio. So I hope folks have enjoyed this show. I certainly have. Closing comments, Don, and how can they access you, and what parting incredibly important pieces of information would you like to leave our 3,000 million listeners?
Again, it's projectmayday.net. I think besides accountability, I think the area that we see that we've got to work the hardest on is communications. We listen to these audio tapes, and one of the things that usually stands out in the audio tapes where the Maydays are not run well and are more serious is the fact that there's not a confirmation of any orders. You know, it's sort of like, I assume that I just made it an order to evacuate the building, so I assume you heard it and you're going to do it. When the reality is, if you don't get the confirmation, you shouldn't make the assumption. You know, but we don't do a lot of confirmation of orders, and we probably see that on about 60% of the audio tapes.
I'm smiling so much because, you know, I'm pretty sure that's still the third function of command.
Yes.
Written by Chief Brunacini and well embedded in that blue card program that Bruce spoke about.
Yeah.
Without clear, concise communications that are followed from beginning to end, that we use a communications order model in, we're destined to make major mistakes. That, I think, is some incredible advice. Let's say not only Project Mayday, but they want to get a hold of you and have communications directly with Don Abbott. How would somebody go about doing that?
It's Donald E. Abbott at yahoo.com.
Perfect.
So I would add one other thing on the communications thing, because it's a really critical component that we're struggling with when we listen to some of these audio tapes. And that is that almost tell the departments that do a lot of exercises and drills with Maydays and those who sort of don't. And one of the things that is probably the most troublesome is when people start to yell and scream over the radio, thinking that you're going to hear me better if I yell.
First you lose your head, then you lose your butt.
Yes. So,
wow. Well said. Well said. And I think to ask Bruce the same questions, another well-traveled fire chief that has led our nation in so many safety ways. Bruce, any closing comments about the three components today?
I'm going to echo Don. I think the single largest item is an effective communications plan that's practiced, that you are using all the time. And I'll go back to Blue Card, because I've had people tell me, well, Blue Card's just a communications plan. Well, certainly a great deal of Blue Card is a communications plan. And you practice when you do the didactics. You practice that communication sets and reps. You do it over and over and over again. Well, okay, so you don't want to go to Blue Card. Sit down and do communications drills. Do communications drills when you would not normally do them. Don talks about it. When do we practice Mayday evolutions? Well, we go to the training academy during the day and we practice Mayday evolutions. When do most Maydays occur, Don?
At night.
It's that simple. Is we need to be training, not training till we get it right, training until we can't get it wrong. Particularly in this arena, because it's a life or death situation.
Wow, I think that's well said. And another critical point you've mentioned now, if my count is right, about 3 times, is that there's no big fire or medium fire or small fire plan, is there? You said it, implement it every time, be consistent with it, and make it happen. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening live to FDIC. I'm Dennis Rubin. I've been your host today. We've had 2 incredible presenters that have brought to us information, first of all, about Project Mayday. It's something to keep an eye on. And if you get a chance, sit in on one of the excellent presentations presented by Don Abbott. Well, we've also discussed the accountability process, trying to always answer the 6 major questions of accountability. Who the members are that are operating in the hazard zone, where are they, what are they doing, what are the conditions that they're working in, their 2 paths of exit or more, hopefully, and then finally, is the team ready to go? And then we closed out today with a discussion about incident command and how critically important it is. If you didn't make it to FDIC 2019, put it on your schedule for next year. Without a doubt, this is the best venue, the greatest fire department experience and EMS experience that you could possibly have, from the vendors to the great presentations to the networking to all the pageantry and wonderful things that occur. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to this podcast. Once again, it's Dennis Rubin along with Bruce Varner and Don Abbott signing off from the beautiful confines of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Hey everyone, Rich Gasaway here, coming to you from FDIC 2019 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Yesterday I had the opportunity to do a program on situational awareness, a foundation for high-risk decision-making. And I thought it would be worthwhile to just share for those who perhaps were not able to attend the program some of the things that we cover to give you an idea of what situational awareness is and why it's so important to first responders. So let's start the conversation out with a definition of situational awareness. Situational awareness is your ability to perceive and to understand what is happening in the world around you in relation to how time is passing. Because as time passes, conditions change. And as conditions change, so does awareness. And then, hopefully, and this is really probably one of the most important components of situational awareness, being able to accurately predict what's going to happen in the future and to do that in time to prevent a bad outcome. So as you're preparing for, responding to, arriving at, sizing up, and operating at incident scenes, it might be worthwhile to keep the definition of situational awareness in mind. There's just one problem. It's too big. There's too much. It's too complex. So what I've done is I've simplified it. I've got it down to 3 easy words. If you could just remember these 3 words and keep them pinging around up there while you're preparing for, responding to, arriving at, sizing up, and operating at incident scenes, it will improve your situational awareness, I assure you of it. So what are those 3 words? Perceive, understand, and predict. Now, as I talk about situational awareness from the neurological perspective, it's a very complex topic. And I try to do my very best to make the complex very simple to understand. So I like to use analogies to help explain how we develop and maintain situational awareness. So the first analogy I like to use is building a house. To build a house, you have to first have a foundation. On the foundation, you put walls. On the walls, you put a roof. That's how we're going to build situational awareness. Foundation, walls, and roof. The foundation for situational awareness, the start of it all, is perception. Perception is the process by which you use your 5 senses to gather information about what's happening around you. Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling. Arguably, it's the easiest part of situational awareness. If you talk with somebody and you ask them, do you have good situational awareness? And if they say, well, yeah, I think I do. And if you were to say, well, what do you do or how do you know that you have good situational awareness? And if in response to that statement they said to you, well, I pay attention. Or maybe they'd say, I keep my head on a swivel. Or maybe they'd say, I'm always looking up, down, and all around. Or maybe they'd say, I actively listen to the things that are going on around me. Or maybe they'd say, I conduct a complete size up before I begin my operations. If you talk with anybody that describes their situational awareness using any of those terms, they're not wrong, but they're only describing the beginning. There are 2 more component parts to situational awareness beyond paying attention. And while I said paying attention might be the easiest part of situational awareness, it's not that easy to pay attention, especially when you're in high stress, high consequence, time compressed environments with changing conditions. So let's talk about how we perceive the world. You use your 5 senses to gather information about what's happening around you. Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling. The 5 senses are always on, always gathering inputs. Now, each of the senses take those inputs and turn those inputs into electricity and send the electricity into your brain. When you're looking at something, your eyes take in rays of light. There are nerves inside of your eyes that then take the rays of light and turn the rays of light into electricity and send that electricity back into your brain. The brain is a very dark place. Not one bit of light you see actually gets inside your brain. It all stops at the eyeball. When you listen to something or someone, sound waves come into your ears. The nerves inside of your ears take the sound waves, turn them into electricity. and send that electricity back into your brain. The brain is a very quiet place. Not one sound you hear actually gets inside the brain. All the sound ends at the ears. So essentially, all 5 of the senses are taking their inputs, turning them into electricity, and sending them down 5 different highways, one for each of the senses. Now, in my efforts to try to explain this in easy to understand ways, try not to think of it as electrical activity crackling through your brain, but rather think of it this way. Each of your 5 senses are gathering up pieces to a jigsaw puzzle. There's jigsaw puzzle pieces from vision, jigsaw puzzle pieces from hearing and feel and taste and smell. Those jigsaw puzzle pieces are then sent into the brain, trying to reach a destination where the jigsaw puzzle gets assembled. When they reach that destination and the jigsaw puzzle gets assembled, then you advance to the second part of the situational awareness development process, the walls of the house, so to speak, and that is what we call understanding. Understanding means making sense out of what you see, hear, feel, taste, and smell, sometimes called comprehension. So let me pause for a moment and make a clear distinction between perception, the inputs, and the comprehension, the assembly and understanding. Imagine if in front of me I had a table, and on the table there were 1,000 pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, all unassembled, all laid out on the table. If I looked around, I would see a random collection of 1,000 pieces of data. Now, unless you have some kind of super skills, you could not look at those 1,000 pieces of data and know how they all fit together. You have to figure out a process for how to assemble the jigsaw puzzle. And this is kind of what's going on inside the mind, is we're gathering up pieces of information, trying to figure out how do we get it all sorted out, how do we make it all make sense, and how do we get it all to fit together. Now, if you had this puzzle and you picked up any random piece, there's a good chance you wouldn't know where that piece goes. But on the table, there are 4 pieces that you know exactly where they go, and we call them the corners. The corners are important because the corners represent facts, and the facts become the starting point for the assembly of the puzzle. We gather the 4 corners and we set them in front of us, and then to those corners we add additional facts, which we call the edges, because they have a flat side, so we know that exactly that it's an edge. And then we build a frame around the problem. Now, before I get to the frame and the filling in of the puzzle, let me pause and make a comment about the 4 corners, because it's actually a really important situational awareness takeaway. When you're working in a high-risk, high-consequence environment and a lot of information is coming at you, don't try to understand all the information or make sense out of all the information too quickly. If you do, you'll get overloaded and overwhelmed. And if that happens, your brain might literally shut down your ability to do critical thinking. That is sometimes called analysis paralysis. You literally have like a brain freeze where you can't even think about how the pieces go together or what the next piece of the information is supposed to mean in relation to the previous pieces of information. So what you want to do as the tip is focus on a small number of the most important pieces of information to help you with the process of forming your situational awareness. So you get these pieces and you get the corners, and then you get the edges that go together with the corners, and then you fill the puzzle in from the outside in, and eventually snap those last pieces of the puzzle into place. And when those last pieces snap into place, you'll have what is sometimes called the moment of clarity, or the flashbulb moment, that aha, you go from confused to that clear state of understanding that you know what is happening. Now, as you're trying to figure out or understand what is happening in the environment and you're assembling the puzzle pieces, you might ask yourself a couple of questions. And I don't mean figuratively, I mean literally. Use that little voice inside your head that we call self-speak and ask yourself some questions to help ensure you're understanding truly what is happening. The first question you might ask is, what does this mean? I see it, but what does it mean? I heard it, but what does it mean? Oftentimes, what we see and what we hear has a deeper meaning beyond what we see as the surface clues. In other words, there's context, there's deeper understanding. And by asking that question and then forcing ourselves to think about the answer to that question, we're actually causing ourselves to look beyond the information that's just on the surface and try to understand the deeper meaning. The second question we might ask ourselves is this what I expected to be happening? We come into every incident with expectations. Those expectations are often set up for us by dispatch. Dispatch will tell us, here's what you're responding to, and then that helps us to have certain expectations of the problem that we're going to be dealing with. Expectations are good. They keep us from being surprised and caught off guard. But expectations can also be bad because we can arrive on the scene of an incident expecting to see something, and we may see it even though it's not happening. We're hallucinating. Or we may arrive on the scene and not expect to see something, and therefore we won't see it because we didn't expect to see it. We are reverse hallucinating. Now, we don't want to think that our brain can play these kind of tricks and games on us, but it can. So where in the brain does the puzzle get assembled? There's a place in the brain where what we see, hear, feel, taste, and smell all comes together and forms our understanding. I call it a mental sketch pad. Sometimes in classes, I call it an Etch-a-Sketch. It's the place in the brain where all the pictures of all the information come together and get assembled. Now, here's a key important component. Everything we see, hear, feel, taste, and smell that travels down those 5 highways draws a picture or is a puzzle piece in a picture on your mental sketch pad. That's right. The things that you hear people say to you draw pictures on your mind. Now, you may know this already because you might have been in a conversation at one point with someone and you asked them, do you see what I mean? And maybe they said, yes, I see what you mean. I see what you're saying. Or if they didn't understand, they might say, no, I don't see what you mean by that. We do literally see the meaning of everything from the inputs, visual, audible, even smells. We see smells. When you smell a smell, the smell comes into your nose. The nerves in your nose take the smell, turn it into electricity, send the electricity into your brain. No smell gets into the brain. The brain then takes that code, that electrical code for the smell, and searches the memory database of pictures and see if it has a picture that matches the code for the smell. And if it has a picture that matches the code, it brings that picture down onto that mental sketch pad, and you see the smell, which allows you then to know what the smell is. If we don't see a picture, we don't understand what is happening. So you've got this picture on your mental sketch pad, all the puzzle pieces put together, all assembled. It then gets snapshotted or screenshotted and sent up into memory to do a search of your long-term memory database. This is a big file search. How big is long-term memory? For the average person, that's you and me, the capacity of long-term memory is estimated to be about 10 times all the information stored on the internet. Think about that for a moment. Massive capacity. In fact, you'll never fill it up. Now, access to that information, that's a whole other issue. The average person can only consciously access about 5% of their long-term memory database, which means 95% of everything you've ever learned and experienced is completely outside of your conscious awareness. In there, but you just don't have ready access to it. So you've got the picture on your mental sketch pad, the jigsaw puzzle that's been assembled. It gets screenshotted, sent up to memory, searching your long-term memory stores, trying to find solutions to problems, past experiences, past calls, past FDICs that you've come to, searching the database, saying, do I have a match? If it finds a match from the 95% of the subconscious memory, it can trigger the sixth sense. The sixth sense is the only sense that resides inside the brain and sends information outward. The other 5 senses are all on the outside of the brain and sends information inward. And that sixth sense inside the brain that sends its information out, it has a name. We call it intuition. Now, the definition of intuition is strange. Intuition means knowing without knowing how you know. What? How do you know if you don't know how you know? Intuition does not come to us in the form of knowledge. Intuition comes to us in the form of a feeling. We feel intuition. And there are predominantly 4 ways that you might experience or feel intuition. First, you might have the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Goosebumps go down your arms. Your spidey senses start to tingle. And you get on a high level of vigilance that something isn't right. You're super alert for what's happening around you. You may also have voices inside of your head talking to you, trying to alert you to the potential for danger. And those little voices in your head might be saying things like, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be leaving. You may also get an impending feeling of doom. That feeling that your time on this planet is about to be cut short because of something catastrophic that is about to happen. The most common form of intuition, though, is not any of those, but it is rather the gut feeling, that knotted up, squeezed up feeling in your gut, in your abdomen, that something isn't right. That gut feeling is actually a connection between the emotional control center of the brain, connected to nerve impulses that travel down your spine, split off, and come into your abdomen and cause that knotted up, squeezed up gut feeling. Intuition is your brain's single most powerful red flag warning system, designed to alert you to the potential for danger. And what makes it so powerful is how big the database is. 95% of all the information outside of your conscious awareness makes up that database. Powerful. If only we would trust it and believe it. Okay, the foundation is perception. The walls are understanding. Now we got to put a roof on the house. The roof, and the highest and perhaps most complex part of situational awareness, is being able to predict the future. Being able to get out ahead of what is happening and anticipate what's going to happen 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, 15 minutes from now. Or now, am I talking about some kind of crystal ball, soothsayer, Ouija board kind of predictions? No. We're talking about your brain's ability to make predictions based on what you gather from the current environment, coupled with your knowledge of past experiences. And that allows you to make the predictions. So, how can we accurately predict the future? We could start by asking ourselves some questions. Questions like, what would happen at this incident if I didn't do anything but watch? Now, this is not a strategy. Again, not a strategy. I don't want you to show up on incident scenes and just watch. But that question forces your thinking into the future. It forces you to think about what would happen 5 minutes from now if we did nothing proactively to stop the problem. What might happen 10 minutes from now? What might happen at this house fire event if we did nothing? Now, what we know is if it hasn't happened already, there's a high probability that 2 things are going to happen at a house fire if it hasn't happened before we arrive. First, if we arrive and we just watch, one of the things we're going to observe, likely, is a flashover, a buildup of the heat and gases in a space, and they bank down, and they cause other things in that space to heat up and off gas, and as they off gas, they create vapors, and the vapors are smoke, and the smoke is fuel, and the space fills up with fuel, and then it has an introduction of oxygen, and we have a flashover event. If we then continued to watch, what we'd see is that fire would spread from that room of origin to a second room and a third space, and it would eventually reach the components of construction. And as it reaches the components of construction, it will weaken the structure, and eventually what we will observe is a structural collapse. So if we can anticipate or know that a flashover and a collapse can and will occur at a residential dwelling fire, then what proactive things could we do to make sure that we're not in there when those things happen? Now, you might say that's a blinding flash of obvious, Rich. Surely we don't want to be inside when the flashover collapse occurs. But pay attention to the firefighter line of duty death reports, and pay attention to how many residential dwelling fire incidents where firefighters get severely hurt or killed, and the contributing factor is caught in a flashover event or caught in a collapse. So it's an important concept to understand, to be able to anticipate these flashover events and the collapse events. So as we're thinking about it, we might ask ourselves, well, how long is it going to take before that flashover occurs or that collapse occurs? So what we're talking about here are windows of opportunity. There are essentially two windows of opportunity at a residential fire. First window of opportunity, the window of civilian survivability. From the time the fire begins, that window is closing. What we hope is we arrive on the scene in time to be able to go in and save the savable lives, get them out safely before the window closes. But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes the window closes and we have a civilian fatality. The second window of opportunity is the window for firefighter survivability. That window is closing on us too from the time the fire begins. The window closes on us slower though because we have an advantage. We have turnout gear, SCBA, hose, water, thermal imagers, training. That allows us to stay in the environment longer than a civilian can. But let's not fool ourselves. That window is closing on our opportunity for survival too. What we hope is we arrive in time to be able to go inside and do aggressive work, put the fire out, save the savable lives, and get back out before the windows of opportunity close. But as we know from the firefighter casualty reports, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes firefighters are inside when those windows of opportunity close. My observation from some of the fatality reports are firefighters arrived, the windows of opportunity were closing quickly, very quickly, and they still went inside and suffered a catastrophic outcome. Sometimes having only been inside for a minute or two and then had the catastrophe occur. So as we're talking about situational awareness, we're talking about being able to anticipate those types of events before they happen and do things proactively to keep ourselves from being caught in those situations when they happen. One of the questions we might ask ourselves is, can we change the outcome? We want to, we train to, we aspire to, but can we? We want to. But sometimes when we arrive, the circumstances are already past the point where we can change the outcome. We can't change it. We can't save lives, they're gone. We can't save property, it's gone. I have to admit, it's a terrible feeling to arrive on the scene of a fire and know that you can't save someone's life. I don't imagine that's ever an enjoyable ride back to the fire station on the apparatus, thinking, wow, we really did good today, and somebody died. No, I think we ride back feeling terrible that we couldn't save a victim or victims. What I would hope that you would consider doing is doing everything in your power to not get in the way of those outcomes that you can't change, to be able to have enough situational awareness to be able to anticipate those outcomes and say, this incident is not the type of conditions that are right for me to take the action that I normally would take, that I want to take, that I'm trained to take, that I aspire to take. Sometimes it just isn't the right condition. And I hope that your situational awareness would help you to be able to anticipate that and not put yourself in the gravest of danger where it's going to cause you a catastrophic outcome. As you're trying to predict the future, what you're really asking is, can we, our crew, the resources we have here and now, not what's coming, what we have here and now, can we operate faster than the windows of opportunity are closing? So really, it's just a factor of how quickly conditions are changing over time. Sometimes those conditions change so quickly, the windows of opportunity close in less than a minute. Sometimes the conditions aren't changing as quickly, and our windows of opportunity may be open for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes. Looking and paying attention to how fast those windows of opportunity are changing. To be able to predict the future, we have to use our imagination, because we're trying to see things that haven't happened yet. We're using our mind's eye. Yeah, we actually have two sets of eyes. We have these eyes, the biological eyes. Then inside here we have the second set of eyes called the mind's eye. The mind's eye is what allows us to use expectations, training, assumptions, and to be able to see things before they happen, to anticipate those things before they occur. So let me sum up the situational awareness development process, and then I'm going to I'm going to do a wrap on it, and then I'll let you know where you can go and learn a little bit more about situational awareness. So the process starts with perception, the gathering of the inputs, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling. Those inputs are then assembled together to form the jigsaw puzzle that we talked about, which then creates the understanding. That jigsaw puzzle assembled then goes and searches long-term memory, past experiences, past calls, past training, past FDICs, trying to find solutions and connections to those experiences. If you're going to benefit from any of those forms of intuition that I talked to, this is the point in the process where you would benefit from those intuitive responses, and then you make a decision. Now, it's important to put a pause here and say, as you think about making a decision, to think about the definition of a decision. A decision is a choice from at least two alternatives. So when you arrive on the scene of a fire, you should always have at least two alternatives, two possible actions. Now, what I would suspect would be good advice is that one of those actions is an aggressive action. Makes sense? But the second action perhaps should be a conservative action. Now, we don't want to take a conservative approach to firefighting, but sometimes if the conditions aren't right, the conservative approach might be appropriate, if maybe even only temporarily, and then we can get aggressive. The decision is a choice among two alternatives. After we make the decision, then oftentimes what people say is take that decision and put it into action. What I'm going to suggest is that you pause after you make the decision, before you take the action, to make a prediction. Make your decision, then a prediction, and then an action. So the prediction is a visualization of what is likely to happen based on the decision that I'm about to make. So if you were to anticipate an outcome of an aggressive action, and the outcome of that action was good, then implement the aggressive option. But if your prediction of your aggressive option were not good, then you would perhaps implement your conservative option. So let me sum up by just repeating the definition of situational awareness: the ability to perceive and understand what is happening in the environment around you in relation to how time is passing, and then being able to accurately predict what's going to happen in the future in time to prevent bad outcomes. Now, in the program here at FDIC, what we went on to do from there is to talk about the barriers that flaw awareness. And we focused on about a dozen, what I call the dirty dozen, situational awareness barriers that can impact our ability to perceive and understand and predict future outcomes. If you want to learn more, you can swing by my website, Situational Awareness Matters, samatters.com. You can also go to Fire Engineering Books and Videos, where I have a book on situational awareness called Situational Awareness for Emergency Response, and purchase the book. And also on my website, there is blogs, there's podcasts, and all kinds of resources available for you to help you in your quest to improve your situational awareness and your high-risk decision-making. So thanks for joining me here at FDIC 2019. If you didn't make it this year, plan on being here next year. It is the mecca of firefighter training, and this is my, dare I say it, the 39th year that I have been attending FDIC, and it started for me in Memphis, Tennessee in 1980, and we just had that discussion at dinner last night because believe it or not, I was in the presence of other people who had actually been at the conference in Memphis, so I wasn't the oldest person in the room, but it certainly allowed me to reflect back and share some wonderful stories with friends about the things that have happened at FDICs over the course of those 39 years and how enjoyable it has been to be able to come here and to learn truly from some of the best instructors that grace this planet, and their skills and their ability and their willingness to share their knowledge are just amazing. So if you made it this year, congratulations. If you didn't make it this year, plan to come next year. Thanks for joining me again for the show here on Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio.
All right. Well, we're Sons of the Flag. We're a nonprofit organization that's out of Dallas that supports military first responders and their families with dealing with burn injuries. We started about in 2012 with the mission to help military first responders, and our CEO, Ryan Birdman Parrott, realized there was an issue with burn injuries for military veterans and the care they received after the fact. So he started his mission solely to help out military veterans initially. And once we made that mission, he decided first responders we're lacking the care that we properly need. So there you have, we have Sons of the Flag that's been created and been born. We're based out of Dallas, Texas. Currently, my name is Justin Bemis. I'm a task force leader for the state of Texas. On the north side, we had to divide Texas because we're so big. I have Rob Mitchell here next to us. He runs the south side of Texas. He's staying busy. He's out of the Alamo area for us. We have our National Task Force Director, Chad Gruver, right here. And then we have Jeff Frost, who's our Louisiana representative. Currently, we have what we call task force members. And these task force members are firefighters, first responders, who are tasked with the mission of connecting with these burn centers, getting our information out, connecting with these burn victim injuries, their families, whether it be military, first responders, or whatnot. And our job is to get that message out of who the Sons of the Flag is and what we can do to help them lessen this burden and get back to the most normal possible life they can after such a traumatic injury. We take great pride in this organization, and it's an organization that I think that every single one of us can stand proudly and say that we're proud of the mission and we're proud of the message. And as our CEO, Birdman, always tells, it's always a mission first. Mission first. We can't do anything without the support of all of our donors and those who listen to the radio show and support us. And, those who have stopped by this weekend and talked to us at FDIC, this has been phenomenal. I can be honest, this is my first time coming to FDIC. And so I've been a little bit overwhelmed, but I've really enjoyed it. So I want to kind of talk about a few things that we're doing right now. And I first off, I want to encourage you to go to our website to get more information at sonsoftheflag.org. You'll find all the resource information, what we're really about, and some of the programs I'm going to talk about. You can find all the links and the information to that. And then you have a list of our task force directors and task force members of who you can contact, especially in those states. One of the events that we have coming up, and it's coming up pretty rapidly, is that we have a clay shoot out of Maryland. Greg Turnell is our Maryland task force director, and he organizes this clay shoot that is it's a huge event for us. And so this event's going to be going down this year, June 15th. It's going to be in Ridgely, Maryland, and it's going to be another great event like normal. 75 targets ammo. It's going to be Mission Barbecue. It's like I said, sporting clay shootout fundraiser. It's going to be actually, in Henderson, Maryland, at 16090 Oakland Road. If you want any more information on that, like I said, go to sonsoftheflag.org. Hit up Greg Turnell, hit up any of us, and if you need any more additional information on that. But I kind of want to pass along and kind of talk about what each of these guys do for the organization. The task force members have a huge role. Birdman he's our CEO, but this dude relies on us to get that mission out there. He does the hard work, and, we just kind of do the supporting roles and make sure this mission gets rolling the way that it needs. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to Chad and pass it on, let him talk a little bit about our mission here at FDIC and what's happening with us.
Thank you, Justin. First of all, thank you, Fire Engineering. I've been with Sons of the Flag since 2014. I started out as a Texas task force leader, and I've heard stories with John Walters and Birdman. And first of all, Bird apologizes that he couldn't be here today. He had to catch a flight home this morning, and John stayed with his family. He has his kids this week, so he really wanted to be here. This is the first year John Walters has missed, and I think he told me like 15 years. This is my ninth FDIC. This is my fifth with Sons of the Flag. When we first got here, I hear stories about Sons of the Flag was started by Birdman, John Walters, a couple guys from Dallas, and an FDNY rescue firefighter, Rob Weedman. And they were handing out brochures to this. Most of our growth has come from FDIC. And Chief Halton took a liking to us, fell in love with us, started pushing our mission, and from that it's grown. And I just want to thank Fire Engineering Blog Talk Radio for the opportunity they've given us with our blog radio show and being able to come here and talk to y'all live. It is truly it's the Super Bowl of events for the fire department. Y'all agree, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I do with Sons of the Flag is, if we have several people that want to help, it's a great team to be on. And once they get on Sons of the Flag, we take everybody. You don't have to be a fireman. Most of us are. I've got Billy and Kate Laguerre. Kate helps out. His wife helps out just as much as he does. So what you do when you become a task force leader, we section you. I say task force leader. There's really no leaders here. We're on the same team. We're all fighting for the same reason. And we're all working to achieve the same goals, and that's to help burn survivors. We used to help civilians, and we still can, but we really want to focus down on firefighters and military and first responders and police officers. And so we kind of gave ourselves the ability to, really focus in on the guys that are serving people. And so as you become a task force leader, I'm going to work with you, talk to you about it. What we're going to do is, one of the first things you have to do, we're going to get you in to reach out to the burn center in your area. Like for us in Dallas, that's Parkland. So what we did with Parkland, and it was actually done for me because Bird was here. I go to Parkland, we meet with them, we get a list of capital needs. What does their burn center need from us? And then we take that back. We talk to our board of directors. We talk to our doctors, and we find out, okay, we categorize and prioritize the needs and see what we can do to help. Now, our jobs as the task force members are to go out and help raise money, organize events, organize fire departments, get the fire departments involved, and help come up with events that the money raised from those events will go to the burn centers and the list of needs we had. Now, because of FDIC, when I started, we were in 5 states. I think I counted just a minute ago. Aren't we getting close to 32?
I think we're
30.
Since FDIC last year, we've added Kansas, Maine, Florida, Alaska, Colorado, North Carolina, and from FDIC this year, we've added Alabama, Minnesota, Wyoming, and West Virginia, and Missouri. Anywhere else, Jeff?
No, I think that's it.
And your events that you do, they don't have to be fire department centric. Jeff came up with a great idea for an event. Rob is doing a golf tournament, and Jeff, you're doing.
I'm planning a crawfish bowl. We're going to do it in Dallas, Texas. Tentatively scheduled for May of next year. Once we get date locked in and location, we'll post that on Sons of the Flag website.
Okay.
Like Chad was saying, these events occur because these guys put in the effort. None of this is ever possible without these guys doing what they do. We take, like I said, we take a lot of great passion in this job, and these guys, when we have these events, we go all in. We don't do anything small. I think that's one thing that Chad and I always talked about. This organization doesn't do anything small. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it big, because it doesn't benefit us. It benefits those we're trying to help. And the whole mission is to help those who have been injured. If we cannot help you, then and these events are not successful, then we have not done our job. And I think every time we put blood, sweat, and tears in these events, and we're just truly blessed at the guys like Jeff and Rob and every one of these brothers that I finally have met this weekend from all over the United States. These guys put in the hard work and make Sons of the Flag who they are, and they are able to carry the mission out that we are so forever indebted to.
One of the cool things that we've done at FDIC, and that's one of the things that we'll do if you join our team, we bring the team to FDIC. This is our once a year that I get to meet guys from Ohio. I talk to them every week. We talk to each other all the time on the phone, but we're all here together, and we're feeding off each other. We're coming up with new ideas, and that's kind of one of the perks of being with Sons of the Flag. You're going to come out to FDIC with us, and it's truly the greatest time that I have every year. Rob, last year we had so many people join, and we started showing up everywhere. We had all these events come, and Rob is a really big, important part of why we were able to do this. What we've started doing is we started teaming up with the Fools. And Rob Mitchell is the president of San Antonio Fools. Alamo Area Fools, I'm sorry. And most of our task force leaders are actually Fools members or Fools presidents. Ryan Traders with Kansas, Billy Laguerre, big Fools member, Matt Jelinski from Hot Fools, Jeff's Bon Temp. Sounds different when you say it.
It sounds right when you say it.
Yeah.
So Rob, tell me, as a Fools member, what has our relationship been like with Sons?
So with Fools International and the chapters, the individual chapters teaming up and partnering with Sons of the Flag, what it has done, it has allowed us to have a place to go and take care of. So like for us personally, when we do our hot classes, any kind of proceeds that we get, we give it to the Sons of the Flag. We make sure that when we do our training events, we tell everybody that this is going to Sons of the Flag. And what that does is allow us to also explain what Sons of the Flag is. And everybody that has been to specifically for my chapter, is when we say this is Sons of the Flag, they ask, well, who's the Sons of the Flag? If you come by our booth, there's always a ton of people around there wanting to know more about Sons of the Flag, and being a part of the Fools, teaming with Sons, it has allowed both organizations to grow. So
it's kind of it's a chemistry. We've grown together quite a bit.
Absolutely.
And I was really honored to get to meet Richie Stack for the first time the other night. Can't believe I haven't met him before. And
busy man.
Now he wants to be on the team.
Now he wants to be on the team and help out with in his state.
And one of the cool things about the money you raise for Sons of the Flag, that stays in your region. We're really big about, we want you to have skin in the game. So if Rob's in San Antonio, we're going to keep anything that Rob and his team raises in South Texas, we're going to keep that in the South Texas area. The guys in Ohio raise money for Ohio. Kansas City just did a great event. They did a training event, and the Fools did, and they benefited us. And most of that money is staying with their burn center. And it's really just, it's a blessing to be able to help our own, and you're helping your own fire department. So, Jeff, second year?
It's my second year at FDIC. Yeah.
What's the best part of it?
Oh man, I like it all. I like the brotherhood. I've met several new people this year. I've made lifelong friends in the last 2 years here.
Absolutely,
it's a great thing. I like every bit of it.
Justin, your first year.
Yeah, it's my first year, and I got to be careful because I like to talk too. So I'll ramble on and on, but I'm going to tell you right now, me stepping foot into here has always been a kind of a bucket list dream, and I've been blessed that the team brought us up here. And when we got up here to see people recognize Sons of the Flag and to associate you with that team is just kind of overwhelming. I never really truly was able to harness the response that we would get and realize that the mission is actually real. We are across the United States. And the mission that we have here is an unbelievable mission. And guys like these right here and like the other 15 dudes that are with us, I mean, my mind is just blown. It's one of those, you come into the fire service, you got to talk less and listen more. That's exactly what's kind of going on here. These guys have been on the ground longer than I have, and they've kind of taken me under their wings to make sure that we all hit the same mission goal. And, just the camaraderie, the brotherhood, just the getting together in the evening and running into everybody. And, me personally, seeing some of these guys that are heroes in my eyes in the fire service, it's overwhelming. I mean, there's so much to take in. I'm at to the point that it's pure exhaustion now because there was so much going on. but this has been one of the most amazing events. And, you know, to have Sons of the Flag come in here and people recognize that shirt and they want to shake your hand and say, thanks for the mission. Thanks for what you guys are doing. I'm telling you, man, it's, we're doing it right. And I'm more proud and more blessed to be a part of this organization.
You know, Justin, this is, like I said, this is like my 4th or 5th year here with Sons of the Flag. They all kind of compress, and we're at the end of the week, so I'm getting tired. We're getting tired.
You're fairly old, too,
yeah,
so
I'm
your
fairly
memory's
old.
gone. Yeah.
Fairly old.
Yeah. He's our senior here.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. It is brutal. Every one of the guys on the team, and I hope we all have, and we're firefighters. We have a servant's heart. And I've been a fireman for 20 years, and I wanted to give back to more than just my community. And, you know, I'll personally tell everybody, I was getting stagnant around the 15-year mark. I was having a hard time losing my spark. And then I met Birdman, and, you know, his service to our country, and truthfully, his service to his team. And all he wants us to do is succeed and make ourselves better and make the fire service better. Where the Navy SEAL ties in to the fire department is Birdman's grandfather, Caston Parrott, was a Detroit firefighter and retired out of there, Detroit. And so Bird does this to honor the fire service. I've heard him say 100 times, because I see him all the time, every week in Dallas. We go everywhere together. And, you know, after somebody meets Birdman, because they do always want to meet the Navy SEAL, they go, hey, are you a Navy SEAL too? I go, oh my God, no, I didn't have the honor to serve. You know, one, I'm too big of a weenie to be a Navy SEAL. And
I've seen you run.
Yes, I can't run. It's not pretty.
It's not pretty
at all. So I'm like, no, Bird truly believes that firefighters have just as much service towards our country as military people do. And I've heard him get on to me. He's gotten on to me several times. He goes, son, you have fought the only war on our home territory after 9/11. He went off to fight. We stayed here to fight him on our end. And he truly believes and loves the fire service.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes. Bird puts us first. And I mean, like Chad said, this is a selfless act. That you're not selfish, Bird. I promise you, man. I'm in selfless. And
he's listening right now.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm getting nervous. He's listening to us right now. No, he's extremely selfless, and he puts us first. And whatever we need, he reaches out and makes things happen for us. I've never met a more humble dude that is, to me, the ultimate guy. He is the pinnacle of what manhood is. Navy SEALs, you're not getting better than them. I'm telling you right now. But he treats us like we're the top of his world. And you know, when you join an organization like that, and you know that your CEO or your boss or your partner, you know, partner in crime, if we want to call it right now, stands behind you, stands with you, I know that the mission's real. And I know that when I ask somebody to donate money, I'm doing it for the right reason. I'm not doing it just because I have a shirt on and I want you to write a check to us. I know what the mission means, and that mission is truly deep in every single one of us. And like I said, Bird stresses that, and he talks to us like we're individuals. He really connects with each individual person. And, you know, he's lived a life that I think most of us could dream of living, but most of us won't ever do it because, like, you know, Chad says, we just don't have the testicular fortitude to do it. But we're all firefighters. Our hearts are in the fire service. Our hearts are in the community itself and the community that we serve. And events like FDIC allow us to truly get our message out and make sure that you know who Bird is, that you know who Sons of the Flag is, that you know who your task force leader is, or your task force member in your respective state is. You know, with that kind of mission, we're going to be unstoppable. And burn treatments will be better because of Sons of the Flag. I'll just go ahead and say that.
Justin. Jeff just wrote me a note, and I think it's very important. One of the first things we do, you know, as I kind of talked about the indoctrination of what it does when you join our team and the steps we go through getting your events. He asked a question, and we say it enough, and it's one of the hardest things we have to tell people because we want to help. We want to help immediately, and we want a quick fix for the help. With burns, there are no quick fixes. So what if you do need us? And what if you do have a firefighter in your area get burned? How can we help? God forbid anybody gets burned, but if it happens, you're going to be at a burn unit, and we're never going to argue with a burn unit, and we just want to supplement them. So we we don't reach out right away, you know, with HIPAA laws and all that stuff. We really can't. So what we need you to do is, and if anybody's listening, please take note. Just remember sonsoftheflag.org. I think the first thing you see when you come to the webpage is a request for assistance. All you have to do is fill that out. Once that fills out, it emails Bird, me, Sherry back at home, and that gives us permission to contact you. And then we call, see how you're doing, whatever you need, ask what we can do to help you, and that helps us start the conversation rolling. Once that happens, it's not like, hey, you get help one time. We're here with you for the whole fight. We have a program in Florida called Mission Reconstruct Freedom. And we have to kind of fight with some, we're working through some details. It's in its trial process. We've had it going for about a year now. I think we've had about 4 or 5 patients go through it. When you get burned, there's so many surgeries that you have to have. You need skin grafts replaced. As you grow, things change. You know, you have scar tissue develop. It's not uncommon for these burn survivors to have, what's Crispy have, like 104 surgeries now?
Yeah.
104 surgeries.
And he picked that name.
Yeah, that is his name. Yeah, his name's Omar Avila. He owns it. He got burned like what, 95% of his body? 95% of his body, 3rd and 4th degree burns. So what we did is Birdman and his staff and his doctors and his board of directors, they compiled a team of the best, put them all together in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. And so what they do is if you join our program or if you ask for assistance, we'll offer this to you. The doctors will Skype you so you don't have to visit. And what they try to do, if you have hand problems, they have a hand surgeon there. If you need skin grafts, they try to address as many surgeries as they can at once to make recovery easier on you and to get you more functional and get you more back, to make your life as easy as possible. And that's a program that we did. And like Bird, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. I think you get to rehab at like a safari place where animals or giraffes and stuff are walking around your rooms. It's a really nice place for your family to be. We want to take you, and we want your wife there with you. We want your family members there. It helps you heal easier. Dustin, you want to talk about the how we get burn doctors and the funding?
So yeah, we have what we call a fellowship program, and so the fellowship program, our goal is to get as many burn surgeons into the medical community as possible. There is a huge disparity between the numbers of burns with the number of doctors that are actually able to treat these burns correctly. And like our goal is in the fellowship program, we help kind of gear these doctors towards that direction, whether it be scholarships or some sort of assistance to kind of motivate them a little bit more to take that step to become that burn surgeon. And that's one of the things that Bird's always talked about, is that the huge disparity in the numbers. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to bring that number of burn surgeons up to meet the demand of those who are actually being injured and that need the assistance that we actually can that we can actually provide to them. So the medical fellowships is a huge program that we're really passionate on, and right now we're really getting after this one program. And I want to have Chad talk about it. That we've been really pressing hard at FDIC this year, and a lot of people have actually said they remember us talking about it at the Fool's Bash the other night, which is awesome that they remembered it. But it's called the St. Florian Vow, and I'm going to let Chad talk a little bit about that and kind of express how passionate we are about this program and what you guys can do to help us and what we can do to help you guys get started.
Okay, so what the St. Florian Vow is, we have so many people that want to help, and we understand that life gets in the way. You don't have time to help. You're busy at your careers. You're busy with your families, but they do want to be a part of us, and they do want to join a team. So we came up with the St. Florian Vow, and what you'll do is you text the number. I'll give the number out at the end of the show. It's a call to action for firefighters. And what we're going to do is we set up a link for you. It's called Create St. Florian Vow. And we're asking people to try to raise, and we want 1,000 firefighters to raise $2,500 over the course of the year. What we're going to do with this money is you can share it out on social media. We plan on taking this money, put it in an account. We're trying to be proactive and not reactive and wait until the burns happen to go out and raise money. We want to keep it, and we're keeping this money set aside, and this money only benefits firefighters. This money is only used for firefighters. It doesn't help military. We've got that down. We've got that covered. It doesn't help. It's for firefighters only. So we're asking you to do it. You know, and I always say it, a lot of drops will fill a bucket. You know, and if you don't make the 2,500, no big deal. Anything helps. Anything helps. I think we've had something like 275. I don't know the numbers from the Fool's Party the other night. I think we're at like 275 people have taken that vow. And thank y'all so much for stepping up and trying to make a difference. And I'll give the number out at the end of the show. You can I'll do it now and I'll do it at the end. Text JOIN to 682-204-1729. Once again, 682-204-1729. Text JOIN. Landon, does that have to be all caps? No, it can be caps or lowercase. We'll put this link up on our Facebook account right now. That way everybody can see it. We'll put it on Instagram. Justin, while we're here, why don't we talk about the Sons of the Flag radio show?
Yes, absolutely.
Justin and I do the Sons of the Flag radio show out of Dallas. I'm incredibly blessed to have the opportunity. Radio show, we tell what we got going on, events we got coming up, but I also wanted it to be something that firefighters could listen to at the station and get some training hours for. And I was incredibly blessed to have Chief Scott Thompson, who has a new book out, Functional Fire Company. I think it's done really good this week.
He signed a lot of them this week.
He signed a lot of them this week. He actually taught my fire academy back in Texas. I've known him since I was 17 years old.
You just said how old he is. That's not cool.
No, I also said how old I am.
Yeah.
I didn't say when
Yeah.
I said it. I didn't say when he taught it. I said he did teach it. He was one of the instructors in my academy. He was real young too.
How long ago was that?
Huh?
How long ago?
I'm not saying. But
his abacus doesn't go that far back.
But I was nervous. I'd never done a radio show. Y'all can probably still tell I'm nervous about this kind of stuff. I'm a fireman, man. I'm here to help people. So I called him and I said, hey, I know how you think. I know you have a new book coming out. He let me, I was fortunate enough to get to kind of know what the book was about before it came out. I go, I think what you've got going is very similar to the way Byrd thinks and Byrd's training philosophy on the Navy SEALs and what they do. And so I go, would you please do our first radio show that Justin and I were a part of? And we set up in the office, and I didn't mean to do it. It went really well. I think we had the most views that Sons of the Flag Radio had ever had. I think it was like 1,700 views in 1 week. Landon, is that about right, you think? And so now I'm like, great. Now there's pressure to repeat. And we also did a Fools event, didn't we? With
sure
them. And I think it went, 5,000 views in a week?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. So once again, so thankful for what the opportunity we're given with the Blog Talk Radio. And, I hope you can listen to it. I think you still go back and listen to that one. You get to listen to it at the fire station. Hopefully it, helps out. It's mostly Byrd and Scott Thompson, Chief Thompson talking, and it is incredible. That kind of leads me into something that happened here at FDIC 2 years ago. And it's going to be this month's radio show, which is on April 30th, correct?
Correct. It released April 30th.
2 years ago at the Pierce party at the Big Daddy's?
I think so.
Big Daddy's is where it was. I met a guy named Andy Allison. He was a Louisville firefighter who had been on the job a very short amount of time. And he contacted a electrical wire. He got electrocuted bad and didn't know how bad it was. Basically, he burnt the whole inside of his body, broke his back everywhere, but they didn't figure out that he was burnt. And they didn't figure out how bad he was hurt. And he actually went back on the job. And just wasn't right. And I remember seeing Andy, and he looks fine from the outside, but he can barely walk. He has to walk with a cane. He doesn't like it. He has a back brace on. And I sat there and go, Bird, that's a Louisville firefighter. He's a Texas firefighter. We've got to find a way to help him. And in Texas, we like guns. So came up with we did a raffle. Everybody helped me with it. I think we gave away, 50 guns? 50 guns in 50 days. And we were able to raise quite a bit of money for Andy. We're going to give it all to him. But the more it took me a while to sell these tickets. And so we started selling tickets. I sold them for, a year, always talking to Andy, went on radio shows with Andy so he could tell his story, because I'm not going to lie, workers' comp did not do him right. And I feel he has small boys. At the time I had a small boy, despite how old I am, and he wasn't my grandchild. Let's go ahead and throw that out there before they do.
There's a backstory. Come see our booth and I'll let you know the story.
Yeah, come to the booth and we'll let you know. They'll tell you everything there is. He couldn't pick up his own kids. He never held his children. And that got me.
We're live.
I know we're live.
Okay.
I'm getting notes on people telling us what all the events that we have coming and saying hi. It really touched me. But as I got to know him and his family, that's not the story. The story is his wife, because his wife has spent this whole time taking care of him and has never complained once. So on April 30th, we're going to release the first episode of it. First of 3 episodes. And we're going to go through Andy's story, from what it was like, what he wanted, why he wanted to be a firefighter, with him, his fire chief, and Amanda, his wife. And I started doing it, and we thought we were going to tape 1 episode, and we were going to get it done. And we were taping it, and it was 90 minutes in, and we had just gotten to where he was injured. And I was like, I stopped it, and I said, you know what, guys? This story means way too much and is way too powerful to not be done right and told. So it's going to be a continuous series of what happened to Andy, what it was like at the fire station for him, what he went through, what Sons has done for him, and we're going to take through the whole progression of his injuries. And it's got a happy ending. I'm not going to spoil it for you, and we're still fighting for him, but that's going to be starting on April 30th.
And kind of recap what Chad was just talking about. This story, and I can tell you firsthand, is going to, re-verify what our mission here is at Sons. And you're going to get a lot of information, and it's going to be powerful, and it's going to be a talking point. And I hope it starts conversations, because firefighters like Andy, and the reason we're so passionate about this one, because Andy's injury, he's in a fire department probably less than 20 miles from both Chad and I. And so it's a close personal connection to this story. And, we take this one seriously, and we take everything else seriously. But this is our time to really get this message out. And you're going to hear a lot of stuff, and you're going to hear the truth. And what we've always believed at Sons is that you're going to always get the truth from us. And, our mission is going to be there. Our mission is going to exploit the truth and exploit the problems that exist with burn care these days. And so Andy's story, I truly encourage you to listen in when it's released on April 30th, and to get ready to continue to listen in as you hear the progression, because like we talk about, military veterans, first responders, and their families. Andy's story is about his family too, and I think that's where so many burn injuries happen, is that the families are the ones that are suffering along with the burn victim itself. And sometimes that part gets kind of pushed to the back burner, and many people don't see that part. And what we want to do at Sons, and we want to make this real. We want you to know this is a real story. This is what can really happen to you. And our job is to convey that message and make these conversations happen, and make the families realize that when a burn injury does happen, that victim and the family will have their back. With Sons of the Flag will have their back. We're going to be there. And you reach out to these task force members. You reach out to us at sonsoftheflag.org. We're going to get you connected the way you're supposed to. And we cannot do any of this on the radio, these programs, or even be here at FDIC without the full support of all of our people that work for us, all those that have stopped by the booth, all those that stop us in the streets or stop us in our local areas and just talk to us about our mission, talk to us about our cause, because none of this is possible without that. And Andy's story would not exist because if the donations weren't there. If the donations weren't there, we would not be talking right now. We would not have this conversation. Andy'd be still dealing with some of the nonsense that he's had to deal with. And right now, we've had the donations, we've had the support, we have the team to get this message out. So none of this nonsense has to continue anymore. That these guys get the proper care, they get the proper treatment, and no one's ever left alone in this world. And that's one of the things I think we believe the most, that no one goes through this fight alone. Yeah. We are the resource for burn survivors. We are going to be your resource, and you're never going to be alone. Your wife, your kids, your husband, your family members, you will never be alone, and I can guarantee you. And our goal, I think, through this radio program, just to talk fire and listen to Navy SEAL talk is our main thing, because we all like to hear them tell stories. But we're going to tell our message. We're going to tell our story. And we hope that you guys take this journey and this ride with us, because if you don't, man, we're nothing. But you guys have shown up in true fashion, true firefighter brotherhood. And like I said, this has been the most overwhelming week, just introducing myself to people, talking to people, and letting them hear our message. I mean, I think it's just been a complete whirlwind.
Well said, Justin.
Like I said, I like to ramble.
He gets fired up.
Yeah.
Rob, you have an event coming up, don't you?
Yeah, so we have a golf tournament and concert coming up in October. All the proceeds are going to go back to the Sons of the Flag. It is October 5th. It is going to be in San Antonio, Texas. It'll be...
What's it called?
Pars and Bars. Music bars, not. So we've been. One of the cool things about FDIC is the networking, and this will be my 6th year coming to FDIC. Be my first year with Sons of the Flag, but getting out and networking with different manufacturers and different potential sponsors. So what we're doing is we have this golf tournament. It's going to be at the Silverhorn Golf Course in San Antonio. We have 36 teams. Registration will open up in a couple months. We're still working on sponsorships and things like that, so we can raise as much money as we can for burn research. The big thing we need right now is sponsors. If anybody would like to, I don't know what he's trying to say to me. Okay. Yeah.
Just email you.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
So there you go. Again, I'm not a radio guy either. So if you have any questions, or you guys would like to reach out and be a partner with us, email me at rob@sonsoftheflag.org. The cool thing is the after the golf course or the golf tournament, we have a concert. We have a nationally known artist. I'm not allowed to say his name yet.
You can't say his name because there's a no compete clause.
There's no complete,
and he cannot play. There's a no radius clause, and you can't advertise it until about 90 days before the event.
August 5th, I can announce who it is. I've already talked to.
You can say who it rhymes. You can say a rhyme.
I could, but I'm not that good. So, but anyway, it'll be a good show. We were stoked to be able to do this. It's something that I've wanted to do when I met Sons of the Flag in 2014. When Bobby introduced Birdman to me, and that whole story.
Yeah.
But when I told him that night, I want to help you guys, and we just weren't able to connect until last year. And when Chad and I talked and said, let's do this, I was super stoked to be a part of it. So
is it hard? I mean, you do have to do some work, but is it hard to come up with? Do we help you come up with events?
Yes. So anything I need, I just call Chad, Sherry, who is a rock star, and even Landon. You're welcome. But if you need anything, everybody there from Birdman on down is there to help.
and the reason I want you to say this, because I don't want to make you, if you don't have any experience working with us,
It's okay.
Team effort.
Team
It's a
effort.
team
It's a
effort.
team effort.
It's not one individual. We are a team. So
Thank you, Rob. Hey, we're getting ready to close out. We've taken our time. I appreciate you listening to us. Come by and see us at our booth.
2206.
2206. We've sold out of T-shirts. Sorry. You can get them online still. But we have these incredible challenge coins that are the Sons of the Flag Eagle. And we've got a few of those left. Please come by and get them. We'll be here all day tomorrow. You can follow us at social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, sonsoftheflag.org. Once again, I want to do that St. Florian Val. Firefighters, this is our call to action. I want you to try to raise as much money as you can. You have 1 year to do it. We will come up with prizes for the people that raise the money and hit their goal. Text JOIN to 682-204-1729. 682-204-1729. We're going to put that up on all our social media sites right after the show. And if you want to join the team, please come see us at our booth. You can email me at chad@sonsoftheflag.org. Landon, I don't understand what you're saying, so go ahead and say.
Text message. I sent you all the information.
Oh, thank you. Want to join the task force? Go to the website, www.sonsoftheflag.org. Fill it out. I'll get in touch with you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, FDIC. Be safe. Have a good time.
If anybody knows someone who's been burned or anything.
Okay, there you go. Landon's saving us again. The request for help.
over here.
Sonsoftheflag.org.
Yeah, sonsoftheflag.org. That's where the request for assistance begins.
They can email us at help@sonsoftheflag.org.
Help it. But there it is. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tammy.